Chapter 101. Chapter 100. At the end of the vast universe, on the far side of the darkness, a black hole connected to the outer universe was opening. A new gate has occurred. All troops, prepare for enemy raids. Go! At the command of the rulers, the heavenly soldiers spread their brilliant wings all at once. The aura of brilliance they exuded collided with the aura of an outer god emanating from the black hole. At the heart of that fierce battlefield, was it just my imagination? I think someone called me. A man wrapped in black energy, Sung Jinwoo, suddenly turned his head with a frown. Isn't it Beru? High Commander Bellion, who was preparing the battle line, suddenly appeared and replied to that. When he brought up Beru, Sung Jinwoo's eyebrows furrowed. Come to think of it, Beru is really... Sung Jinwoo asked him to come back quickly, but he still had not heard from him wherever he was playing. Did he do what he was told to do, or did he do it right? Shadow Monarch, by any chance, if something happens to Beru, then young master. That's unlikely. Sung Jinwoo shook his head resolutely at Bellion's concern. I would have noticed right away. If something went wrong with his shadow soldier, Sung Jinwoo would know it immediately. So far, he has not felt any sign of it from Beru. On the way to Earth, he must have suffered some damage from fighting the remnants of Itarim, but there was no way that Beru would face extinction against just those guys in the first place. Besides, Beru has a special ability that other shadow soldiers don't have. Predation. Beru is basically a bug-type monster with excellent survivability. He was a shadow soldier who could replenish his own strength no matter how far away from the monarch he was, with all due respect. Just in time, High Commander Igris appeared next to Sung Jinwoo and opened his mouth. Igris had always quarreled with Beru, but because of that, he knew Beru very well. No matter how stupid that worm is, he should have finished their mission by now. What we should be concerned about is... He seems to have settled down on Earth. Recalling Beru's personality, Bellion and Igris looked at each other and sighed at the same time. Even within the Shadow Corps, Beru was known for being the strongest and overprotective. If Suho's memories that have been sealed so far were released, Suho would recognize Beru right away. There was a very high probability that Beru, who had been waiting for that moment, would stay on Earth. He was the kind of guy who would run amok out of excessive loyalty, asking who would protect his young master, if not himself. That was also the instinct Beru had as an ant. Well, that might be good enough. I sent Beru, considering that. Sung Jinwoo smiled and looked away from the direction of Earth and looked forward again. It was a tense battle that had been going on for several years. I don't think it will end easily. Looking back, it was rather comfortable to deal with the one back then. It was simply a clash of power and strength. However, the war with Itarim now was completely different from that time. Itarim enjoys creation and destruction. The apostles created by their hands have been fighting each time with bizarre forms and irregular strategies, and because of that, unpredictable situations continue to occur. It was now a battle of strategy and tactics, not a clash of strength and power. In order to deal with them, the most important thing was case-to-case impromptu judgment. That's why. I'll leave it to you. Sung Jinwoo's eyes flashed. Suho, who has been unsealed, and High Commander Beru, who has risen to the level of the enemy beyond class. With the combination of those two, he would be able to entrust the backline to them. It would be quite burdensome for Itarim to take strong people from the front line and go the long way to send them to Earth. If they did, the balance that was held tight would tilt right away. That means only small apostles of Itarim were currently aiming for Earth. But there was just one concern. Actually, the balance has already been broken. It was from the moment he sent Beru, a frontline high commander, to Earth. Similarly, Itarim would also have enough resources to send a guy the size of Beru to Earth. The key is if Itarim will get to notice that fact. The moment they do, they will definitely send an apostle with power similar to Beru's to Earth. It would be all right if Beru could directly deal with that apostle, but what if Beru's condition was different from usual? There would be quite a problem. However, knowing that their backline would be at risk, there was no way not to send Beru. Otherwise, sooner or later, Earth would surely perish. So Suho, Sung Jinwoo, opened his mouth, thinking of his only son struggling alone on Earth. You have to. Be strong. My son. Arise. The moment Suho gave out that order, Beru recalled the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jinwoo, a solemn requiem brought about by the Shadow Army that covered the vast and distant universe. The Immortal Army, led by Beru himself, were invincible warriors who transcended even death and were messengers of hell who would burn their souls to complete their mission if their master commanded them. But the army led by Suho consisted of only one guy, Quay. The Shadow Mercenaries for one day had already gone back to nothing. "Oh, master is calling me." Hearing Suho's order just in time, Quay stood up in the shadows. Seeing that, Beru suddenly realized the situation and shouted at Suho. "No, young master, if you use that skill right now, he needed to stop Suho right away. The opponent is an apostle of Itarim. If Suho summoned the Shadow Soldier now, the apostle of Itarim would find out Suho's true identity. Your identity will be revealed." However, before Beru could even finish his words, something unexpected happened. "Arise, Quay." Suddenly, Suho's hand grabbed Quay and pulled him out. If it's master's order. Quay's body soared along Suho's hand. Swoosh! It looks like a lance. Suddenly, Quay's body was transformed into a lance shimmering with black energy. "I am the Lancer, Quay. According to my master's order, I will become a lance that pierces the enemy's heart." He was in the same shape as the giant bee stinger he usually held in his hand. Ring, the level of skill, Shadow Release, has increased. The skill window automatically opened in front of Suho. Shadow Release Level Point 2, Shape Change. Shadow Power. No mana required. Randomly changes the shape of a shadow soldier. Beru was genuinely astonished. "Oh my god, weaponizing the shadow soldier. I've never seen anyone do this before." "Really?" At Beru's fuss, Suho lifted Quay, who had turned into a lance, in the air, and his eyes lit up. "I was just pretending to be Essil." "Me?" Essil's surprised voice echoed from Vulcan's horn. Spiritualization of a demon noble. Through spiritualization, Essil was able to turn her horn into a weapon and even nestle directly in Vulcan's horn. Suho, who had witnessed it several times now, realized it intuitively. Although the transformation into a spiritual body looks great at first glance, the shadow soldiers were basically spiritual bodies anyway. Just looking at Beru right now, his size or shape also changed here and there as he intended, so of course I thought I could do it too. It actually happened. Beru was greatly moved. Talent. This is what talent is, unique and admirable. As expected, young master is a prodigy. From the time you first realized the ruler's power before you could even walk, I knew that from early on. Sung Jinwoo, a shadow monarch far beyond class, has been at a level where he could handle all shadows freely. On the other hand, Suho was like an ant larva, a kid who had just awakened with shadow power. Beru couldn't believe that the little one taught himself and learned everything on his own. "Whoa! Vulcan's son, I wondered why you had only one hoe, Arin, but it turned out that such a great horn was hidden separately." The mad-blooded tyrant was still firmly misunderstanding the identity of Suho. He thought that the shadow lance that suddenly emerged from Suho's hand was a weaponized demon horn. "So, are you really going to try to defy me with that lance? Do you know many demons I've eaten so far? Do not resist uselessly, and surrender." Slash! Thunk! The mad-blooded tyrant could not finish his words and hurriedly turned his head, barely avoiding the shadow lance that was shot like a thunderbolt. "How dare you!" The moment he turned his head and glared at Suho with a scary expression. Slash! The shadow lance that flew back turned like a thunderbolt as if it had wings and hit his shoulder. Stab! Ack! Surprised, the tyrant hurriedly pulled out the shadow lance from his body. "How dare you do this trick?" Roar! Ominous flames erupted from his raging body. A gap. Suho moved immediately. Swoosh! Tidal Demon Slayer buff is activated. All stats increase by 40% when dealing with demon-type monsters. Swish! Suho's twin swords swung and created a storm of blades overlaid with Rakan's divine wind. Use skill Blade Storm. The tyrant who countered him wickedly raised the corners of his mouth and released his power. "Ha ha! Great! Struggle as much as you can. It would be nice to see how hard the demon noble's body is." His flame opposed Suho's blade storm, creating a massive chain of explosions. However, Suho's twin swords persistently pushed the tyrant, tearing even the explosion. Whoa, that's commendable. After all, no matter how young you are, a demon noble is still a demon noble. The mad-blooded tyrant was a little taken aback. Compared to the low energy he felt from Suho, his attack power was beyond imagination. All the ominous flames he now ignited were fueled by the blood and flesh of the demons he had eaten. On the other hand, Suho's Demon Slayer title was the buff that showed the most certain compatibility against the demon's power. But that's just it. An immense power burst out from the entire body of the mad-blooded tyrant who glared at Suho. Because your body was already poisoned by a cursed blood that would make you crazy. He stretched out his hand toward Suho and unleashed his power. Run out of control with that cursed blood. Swoosh! An ominous cursed fog covered the entire area where Suho stood. In front of him, the mad-blooded tyrant burst into laughter. Ha ha! Did you know? The first meal given to all the demons here was mixed with light-blooded poison. If he wanted to, he could make the poison in the opponent's body go wild at any time. But then, in the ominous fog that covered all sight, thud! Suho jumped out without hesitation and plunged his twin swords into the mad-blooded tyrant's body. If he wanted to, he could make the poison in the opponent's body go wild at any time. But then, in the ominous fog that covered all sight, thud! Suho jumped out without hesitation and plunged his twin swords into the mad-blooded tyrant's body. Chapter 102. Chapter 101. Something was wrong. The mad-blooded tyrant couldn't help but panic. Swish! Suho broke through the cursed fog and pierced the tyrant's body mercilessly. How did? The mad-blooded tyrant screamed and stumbled. It was truly terrifying. He barely avoided it, but he almost got his neck cut instead of his shoulder. However, it was another reason that he was really puzzled. Why doesn't the light-blooded poison work? A curse that causes blood to run out of control and becomes mad-blooded poison. If that poison was used weakly, it has the effect of amplifying power at the cost of pain. But if the mad-blooded tyrant directly uses the poison, it will literally be burned at the stake. It was a cruel curse that caused the blood inside the body to boil and become a lump of charcoal in an instant. Because the medium of the curse was the blood flowing inside the body, it gave an absolute and inevitable death that could not be escaped. But why? Why? How could you be so sane? No, beyond normal, Suho's spirit was alive and running wild. In response to Suho's attack, the mad tyrant roared in anger. As expected, real demon nobles are different no matter what. At those words, someone from far away raised his eyes. The Queen of Insects, Plague Monarch, looks at the mad-blooded tyrant with a disgusted expression. Let's see if you can hold out this time. The tyrant poured an even more powerful curse of blood on Suho. Swoosh! It was no longer at the level of fog that raged and covered Suho. The Queen of Insects, Plague Monarch, is evaluating the level of the curse. But 2 out of 10. The Queen of Insects, Plague Monarch, spit out saying that she just gave up her appetite. Swoosh! Suho casually broke through the curse and swung his twin swords. Young master, you have to aim for the head. I saw it too. The tyrant blocked the attack that was obviously aimed at his head with his shoulder. It was probably because he was wearing the corpse of the demon's jailer-like armor. That blazing face sticking out over the armor must be his weakness. Spring up, Quay! Swish! Quay's lance flew like lightning again and attacked the mad-blooded tyrant. The goal, of course, was his head. Ack! The mad-blooded tyrant frantically repelled the irregular attacks from the front and rear, shouting at his men. What are you guards doing? Come here right away and take this guy. Huh? His eyes widened as he hurriedly looked at the place where the demon guards were. Ouch! It's hot. An unbelievable sight was unfolding. The demon guards were burning and dying. Why are they suffering from light-blooded poisoning? Oh, that! I gave it to them. At Suho's words, the tyrant's eyes widened as if they were going to pop out. Suho has been poisoning them with light-blooded poison after he passed by the demon guards. He didn't know that the action would bring such a result, but it was the most perfect ending. While the tyrant panicked, Suho was already preparing another attack. Beru, let me ask one thing. Yes? Quay hasn't been caught, has he? Yes. That tyrant didn't even know that Quay was a shadow soldier. The power of the Shadow Monarch is the power to destroy everything hidden in the eternal darkness of the bottomless pit. The aura of death was a true fear that subdued the opponent just by touching it. In fact, because of that, Suho used to be scared by children when he was young. It was for this reason that Suho's memory was sealed by the power of the Shadow Monarch. But now, he was able to capture some of that energy. Okay, a quick calculation has been made. Suho immediately looked around and shouted, "Arise! Move! Move!" There were grotesque cries that echoed through the air, the Minotaur that Suho killed. Black shadows began to sway terribly from their corpses. Shadow release succeeded. Shadow release succeeded. Shadow release succeeded. However, before the soldiers united with their original form, Suho immediately attempted a shape transformation. Go! Mo! At Suho's command, the shadows of the Minotaur came together in a circle and soared up. Shape transformation, gauntlets. Shape transformation, gauntlets. Shape transformation, gauntlets. Weaponization. If Quay was a spear, this time the Minotaurs turned into gauntlets. 5 Minotaur heads with vicious bullhorns at the fore flew like cannonballs and crashed into the tyrant's body. Ack! As if hit by a truck, the tyrant was thrown backwards and crashed into a wall. Crash! The walls of the Colosseum collapsed on him, and the tyrant rose up through the rubble with a frightened swing of his arm. But this! The blows of black steam that had approached before he knew it began to pound his body mercilessly. A series of attacks was so fast enough to even react. The ruthless violence eventually crushed the body of the demon jailer in armor. Ah! What the hell is this? Suho confidently answered with an extremely sincere look. Bloodstone. What? He ignored the bewildered comments of Essil and Beru. I don't think such a lie will work. The mad-blooded tyrant gritted his teeth. Bloodstone. Is it the power of demon nobles? Oh, it worked? Essil was surprised. However, from the beginning, Bloodstone was a unique ability that only demon nobles had. The tyrant couldn't help but believe it. As expected, our young master is very clever. If this is the case, you will be able to command the shadow soldiers even in front of the apostles of Itarim. Beru was greatly moved. Until now, Sung Jinwoo, his ruler, had never summoned shadow soldiers by changing their form. In the first place, the side with all limbs attached could carry weapons, and it was much easier to fight, so there was no need for that. However, shadow soldiers are basically spiritual bodies. Suho's power has grown to allow them to freely transform from their previous state. It is truly unique and admirable. If His Majesty saw this, he would be so happy. More than anything else, there was something else that made him happy. I thought you would always be a young and weak ant larvae, but now you could even beat the Apostle of Itarim yourself. Beru, weeping tears of joy, watched as Suho unleashed a finishing blow on the tyrant who had completely exposed his Achilles heel. Use skill. Swish! Ah! The combined attack of Suho, the Blade Storm skill, Quay, and the Minotaurs drove the mad-blooded tyrant into a frenzy. But to be honest, no matter how out of touch Beru was, his eyes were accurate when grasping battle situations. The attack power is still insufficient. Even though he was wearing a demon's mask, his opponent was an apostle of Itarim. There was no such thing as too much. Ah, how dare this lowly demon! The mad-blooded tyrant, who was furious from head to toe, stood up resolutely while being attacked by Suho. His entire body was already covered in scars, but that was just the demon armor he was wearing. The original power of the mad-blooded tyrant hidden within was still alive. Roar! The flames of the tyrant suddenly became even hotter and turned blue, just like a mist burn. Feeling a sense of it, Beru hurriedly shouted, "Avoid him! He is risking his life to use the meteor trail." Meteor trail? He didn't know what that was, but Suho moved back. Roar! Then, the bluish flames spewed out, chased Suho like a living snake, and Suho crossed his twin swords to block the flames. A fire so powerful that the shadow soldiers floating nearby melted away, attacked Suho. At that moment, a thumping sound came from Suho's throat. Item Fire Ghost's necklace resists flames. Fire Ghost's necklace has been destroyed. Crack. The D-class item that Suho had worn since he was in Egypt was greatly oxidized while protecting Suho until the end. Suho's spine felt chilly as he managed to move away. That was dangerous. Although he defended himself, that attack was something that could not be blocked with only the endurance skill that increased physical defense. If it hadn't been for the fire ghost's necklace, he would have suffered severe burns. That was just an internal thing. On the outside, Suho looked perfectly fine, even after being hit by the mad-blooded tyrant's blow of conversion. How did you stay that way even after being hit directly by the flames? The tyrant was the most shocked he had ever been. Right now, Suho couldn't afford to open the shop window and purchase the fire ghost's necklace again. No way. Must be luck. How could an insignificant demon dare to endure that? Roar. Bluish flames far more powerful than just a moment ago roared from his whole body. Young master, look out, Suho already dodged that and jumped without hesitation, backing away early on. Sigh. How can I fight alone because I'm afraid? Now let's get this straight. Currently, he lacked both offensive and defensive power, but there just happened to be a lot of fire kindling and fuel to increase the attack power in that place. Suho raised his head and turned his gaze away from the rampaging tyrant and looked at the stands of the Colosseum. There were demons who had been watching the whole scene and couldn't help but be amazed. What? How did he, to push the tyrant king one-sidedly like that? Is he a real demon noble? As expected, Vulcan's son. Anxiety and hope were mingled in that muffled noise. Are you going to keep watching like that? Suddenly, Suho's voice shook the Colosseum like thunder. The noise suddenly died down. Use buff, battle roar. Right before entering the demon world, Suho finally used the reward from the emergency quest he received after defeating the Hyunmu Guild. Suho continued to yell at them. What do you think are demons? Demon. The heavy sound that flowed from Suho's mouth shook the eyes of the demons who had been slaves to the tyrant for a long time. If you are truly demons, if you still consider yourself a demon. As Suho's words continued, the demons swallowed hard with nervous faces. Suho pointed at the mad-blooded tyrant, wrapped in blue flames with his Vulcan horn, and shouted, "Eat him! There is a dying demon's blood and flesh right there." The mad-blooded tyrant couldn't help but panic. He felt that the atmosphere of the slaves who were completely under his control suddenly changed. Suho finally smiled with satisfaction. Eat and be strong, like a demon to the core. With that, wild roars erupting from all sides and shook the Colosseum. The roar of the battlefield stimulates the demon's suppressed anger. The roar of the battlefield draws out the demon's suppressed anger. The roar of the battlefield ignites the demon's suppressed anger. A hot fire boiled in the hearts of the demons. The fear of the tyrant king, who had reigned over them with vicious power for a long time, disappeared. Instead, a thirst for endless power rose up. The power of the terrifying tyrant king. If only I could take that power as my own. I can become the tyrant king too. I will eat that corpse. No, I will. I will. Ah! All the demons started pouring down on the tyrant, regardless of who would come first. Like an ignited spark, Essil muttered quietly. Chapter 103, Chapter 102. Ah! Hey, are you guys crazy? Seeing the demons pouring down on him, the mad-blooded tyrant couldn't believe the situation. The demon realm, which not only lost its monarch, but also left no nobles, was a truly destroyed world. All of the demons that survived so far were just trashy ones. Dying as a slave for the rest of their lives was nothing more than worthless trifles that should be considered an honor. But those lowly and insignificant bastards now dared to rebel against him. They were drooling and rushing to eat him. The mad-blooded tyrant drew out blue flames in rage. To whom do these savage bastards dare to reveal their teeth to? Roar. The flame of life always burned inside the apostle who served Itarim, the god of the distant outer universe. Flames spread widely throughout the Colosseum and engulfed the demons attacking from all sides. Ouch! The demons started burning to death helplessly like moths jumping into a lantern. However, the demons, who were already mad enough to be frenzied, continued to attack the tyrant, using the corpses as a shield, regardless of who died in front of them. Just a bite, just one bite. Even one bite can make me stronger. Ah! Demons. That place was true hell. Ah, these crazy people are really... The mad-blooded tyrant was stunned. Were they really slaves who have been quietly controlled by me? As an apostle of Itarim, he had a mission to rule and conquer this world. But what the heck is this? Doesn't it seem like I've become the prey? humiliation mounted. He couldn't accept the fact that the emotion he was feeling right now was fear. Ah! I will kill them all, burn them all up, and become my fuel. Ah! A flame exploded with the force of immortalizing the whole world. Demons poured endlessly over it and attacked the blue flames. The corpses of demons became ashes and scattered in all directions. In the center of this, the tyrant shouted, "Ah! I'm getting stronger again. Instead of losing precious slaves, my flame will burn forever." His gaze moved to find Suho, who had created that situation. Even though he suffered some losses, the demon realm wasn't the only one there anyway. As long as his strength was replenished, all he needed to do was find and rule the fragments of another demon realm floating in the dimensional rift. However, there was one fact he overlooked. While he slays countless demons to replenish his depleted power, the souls of the dead demons are being sucked somewhere. Wait a minute. The mad-blooded tyrant's eyes widened wide as he witnessed the scene from afar. Ha! This is it. Suho held up Vulcan's horn with a smile of utmost satisfaction. Vulcan's horn devours the demon's soul. Vulcan's horn devours the demon's soul. And Vulcan's horn devours the demon's soul. Vulcan's horn was devouring the souls of the demons killed by the mad tyrant. Yes, eat as much as you like, until you burst full. Swook, devoured demon soul, 83,713. It seems like Suho hit some kind of jackpot. The count of devoured souls was constantly rising. Then eventually, ring, Vulcan's horn feels full. Vulcan's stomach, which seemed to know no end, eventually became full. Item, Vulcan's horn. Difficulty to obtain. Type, sword attack plus 40. A sword crafted from the horns of the greedy demon Vulcan. Vulcan's powers are imbued, dealing more damage. Effect, destruction desire. Increases physical damage by 300%. Effect, demon devourer. The power of Vulcan becomes stronger as it devours the demon's soul. Devoured demon's soul, saturated, succeeded. Physical damage increased by 300%. In the end, Suho made Vulcan's horn grow to its maximum. Oh my god, did you just use it like that? Essel couldn't help but admire it. While the tyrant recharged his weakened power, Suho used it intact to maximize his attack power. However, this was not the end of Suho's aim. Now, are you satisfied? Suho smiled and raised Vulcan's horn. Then, give your end of the deal to me. As if to answer that question, ring, a message has arrived. You have completed urgent quest, Vulcan's Greed. The completion reward has arrived. Do you want to check the reward? Suho already knew what the reward was. He smiled and held out his hand. The second horn of Vulcan appeared. Item, Vulcan's horn. Difficulty to obtain. Type, sword attack plus 40. A sword crafted from the horns of the greedy demon Vulcan. Vulcan's powers are imbued, dealing more damage. Effect, destruction desire. Increases physical damage by 300%. Was it because Vulcan was the only one who felt full? Surprisingly, the second horn was amplified at 300% as well. After confirming, Suho smiled as he held up the two horns in both hands instead of Rakan's sword. At this rate, I don't need Rakan's fangs anymore. I guess, should I sell it to add to the guild fund? Wouldn't it be better to use two swords that look the same as twin swords? However, there was someone who was frightened by those words. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, wakes up in bewilderment. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, has a better idea and requests a conversation. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, stomps his feet, telling you not to pretend you didn't hear. Suho paid no attention to Rakan's message and was rushing straight to the tyrant at great speed. Swish! Suho swung his sword without hesitation. Thanks. Because of you, my supposed hard work has been reduced. Use skill Strong Body Manifestation. Use skill Blade Storm. Slash! Colossal damage, on a different level from before, exploded on the mad-blooded tyrant's body. Even the blue flames blazing from his body were cut into hundreds and thousands of pieces by the twin swords of Suho. No way. Don't tell me. The flames that had been burning ominously the whole time died down, and a collapsed voice flowed from his mouth. My fear Itarim, thud. You have killed the mad-blooded tyrant. Your level has increased. Your level has increased. Demons who were still alive after the death of the tyrant were shocked. They were so shocked that even their desire to devour also died down. Is he dead? Tyrant King? Is he really going to die like this? They couldn't believe it. absolute shock and horror. Meanwhile, the tyrannical king who had enslaved them had disappeared before their eyes. Not even a corpse was left behind. Even the guards, who had practically served under the tyrant, were all burned to death. What's going to happen to us? They were so used to their slavery that they couldn't even bring themselves to say a word. Esil. In that desolate atmosphere, Suho called Asil. It's your turn now. In Suho's mind, there was only one way to clean up that messy situation with the loss of a ruler. I can't keep pretending to be Vulcan's son. The demon realm that he had observed so far has been a thoroughly hierarchical society. Strong self-esteem, a world where stronger demons prey on weaker demons and rule. However, the moment the demon lords and demon nobles who reigned in that land all disappeared, the entire system was disrupted. Even the apostle of Itarim appeared and ruled the land and enslaved its inhabitants. It was all because there was no pure blood to rule them. Come out. From now on, you have to rule this place. Otherwise, the apostle of Itarim might suddenly appear and devour that place again. Okay. Esil finally appeared from Vulcan's horn. Upon the sudden appearance of Isil, all eyes of the demons were focused on her. The moment they saw Isil, they instinctively realized it. All the misconceptions about Suho being a demon noble and Vulcan's hidden son were blown away in an instant. The energy they felt from Isil was pure blood. The presence of the demon nobles was clearly felt. And noble. A real noble. If it weren't for the current situation, they probably wouldn't have reacted like that. It was because they were demons who attacked to eat even that frightening mad-blooded tyrant. But now it was different. Kneel. At the one word of command that came out of Esil's mouth, they had no choice but to kneel in front of her and bow down. I am Esil, the eldest daughter of Radiru. I am the only demon noble left in this world. Esil slowly looked back at their bowed heads with arrogant eyes. A long time ago, when the demon realm was prosperous, the real use of the Colosseum was for that very moment. There would be duels between demon nobles competing for honor. After the duel and the ranks were decided, the winner would always proclaim the winner's right. According to the long-standing tradition, Esil proudly showed her presence to the demons there. I declare, from now on, this land has become the territory of the Radiru clan. Swoosh! At that moment, a magnificent shout began to erupt from everyone's mouths. It was an echo of a different level from the malicious shouts of watching an execution ceremony in the Colosseum. However, Esil's proclamation was not over yet. The last remaining demon noble, Esil Radiru, commands you. Suddenly, Esil's eyes glanced at Suho, who was next to her. Our demonic realm will be in an all-out war against the outer gods, Itarim, in order not to be dominated by a bee-blooded tyrant again. Esil was virtually the only one qualified to become a demon monarch. Since they were demons who knew that fact, they raged their whole body with demon energy at Esil's words. We must fight. Chapter 104, Chapter 103. Suho was a little impressed. Esil really seemed to be a noble. It was quite cool to see her, whom he had only thought of as a meat lover, skillfully commanding the slave demons. Esilnim, I accept your order, said the one they encountered when they first set foot in the demon realm. Nukira, the horse that was pulling the cart, finally returned to its original form and began to follow Esil's commands. Meanwhile, Suho summoned all the demons in the Colosseum that were poisoned by light-blooded poison and detoxified them one by one. Ah, the pain is going away. Thank you, thank you. The demons who were poisoned by light-blooded poison always lived in pain of boiling blood. The most fundamental thing for demons is blood. Lack of blood for demons was a pain in itself, and boiling blood was a terrible condition that erases their existence. However, all of those phenomena disappeared as soon as Suho deciphered them. Thank you. Wow, ha! It doesn't hurt anymore. I'm alive. Oh, wait, you there? Yes? Weren't you the one who cursed at young master last time? Hiccup. Among them, Beru had already chosen those who deserved to die. The demons that were nearby when Suho was imprisoned. Beru remembered each and every one of the faces of those who eagerly cursed at Suho and made fun of him. The mad-blooded demons who treated Suho badly trembled as Beru approached them. My lord, I have committed a mortal sin. I guess I was a little crazy at the time. Keek, if you commit a mortal sin, it is but natural to get persecuted. Beru had no mercy, and he killed them mercilessly. The light-blooded demons in the prison were detoxified and the pain disappeared, but at the same time, their strength has considerably weakened. Even though Asil originally had the strength of an S-class hunter, she was currently only at B-class level because of the lack of blood in her body. No matter how small and weak Beru was, there was no problem killing the powerless, mad-blooded horses. As he ate them one by one, he gradually recharged his power. Suho refrained him from doing that. Beru, but don't kill too many. They are necessary for the reconstruction of the demon realm. Coke, young master is too compassionate. It breaks my heart. If you're going to kill them, do it when they're strong again to gain a lot of experience. Beru got enlightened and immediately stopped the slaughter. He couldn't interfere with Suho's level up. On the other hand, thank you. The old demon who gave Suho advice in prison approached him. Ah, old man. Suho immediately detoxified the old demon, and then his body lost strength and collapsed on the spot. As Suho tried to help him, he shook his bony arm, saying it was okay. Haha, it's okay. It's because all the blood in my body was filled with poison. Oh, but don't worry, I won't die. The old demon struggled to get himself up on his own. He then politely bowed down to Suho again, lower than before. Thank you very much for saving our demon realm. Suho's act wasn't simply to save them, but to save the demon realm. The old man was sincerely grateful for that. Suho watched him quietly and asked, Old man, are you by any chance a demon attendant? How did you know? The old man flinched at the words and looked bewildered. It felt similar to Nukira over there. This feels odd. Well, you even killed the tyrant king, so finding out my identity is no big deal. That's right. I was once a servant of a nobleman. It looks like you're not Radiru's servant. I was Vulcan's servant. Vulcan? Suho's eyes widened when a truly unexpected answer came out. As if expecting that reaction, the old man nodded again with a self-deprecating smile. Right, Vulcan, the demon of greed. Also, he never had a son. Ha-ha, Suho just laughed. Rumor about him being Vulcan's hidden son was still circulating among the demons. How did the old man feel when he heard the rumor? In the first place, Vulcan had no other desires as he was a demon who lived only by his appetite, so he was a fairly easy lord to serve. Did you say it was easy? Yes, you just had to be careful not to get eaten. Was that some kind of joke? It didn't seem funny, and the atmosphere was full of tension. Do you perhaps know what will happen to the demons in a territory where the demon nobles disappeared? Isn't it going to be like this, being ruled by the strongest? Not really. No matter how strong the opponent is, demons try to devour regardless of their means and methods. Accordingly, the case of the mad-blooded tyrant was a very special case. Then what? Normally, they destroy themselves. They eat each other and get eaten, and in the end, only one demon survives. At those words, Suho looked at the old man again. Were you that one demon? No, I was just lucky. I hid in the ground while everyone was in a mess. When it was all over, I crawled out and ate their bodies to gain strength. Those strong words coming from you were quite contrasting with your looks, though. Beru suddenly intervened and scanned the old man up and down. At that, the old man laughed helplessly. It's natural. My power was stolen by the tyrant king. The tyrant? Yes. Actually, I was the first host to be preyed on by the tyrant king. Later, when he realized that my body was old and useless, he abandoned me without hesitation to find a stronger and fresher demon. What the old man said was a very interesting story. The first host of the mad-blooded tyrant. Even Beru listened to the old man and asked about what had happened at the time. Do you know how he got into the demon realm? How did he get here? Well, I do remember. How could I forget that moment? Meteor. One day, there was a small meteorite that fell into the demon realm where the old man lived. It was burning in the middle of the ground where the fragment of the star had fallen. Blue flame. From there, the hardships of the demon world began. At first, no one knew that he, who was thought to be a small fire demon, would grow into a tyrant who rules over all demons. A meteorite, Beru mumbled something to Suho, who pondered the old man's words. Young master, it seems that the apostle from outer space hid in a meteorite and landed here. Hid in a meteorite? Yes, if it had just flown, it would have been caught and blocked by our shadow core. Currently, All the paths through which the forces of outer space entered that universe were thoroughly defended by the Shadow Core. However, it is impossible to monitor each and every one of those many meteorites. If it was too strong, it would be easy for us to find out. However, after dealing with it, it seems that the mad-blooded tyrant is so small that he was able to hide without being caught. Small? The old man couldn't help but be taken aback by Beru's words. Who would dare to evaluate the fearsome tyrant king as a small one? However, since Suho, who actually killed the tyrant king with even greater power, was in front of him, there was no way to refute that statement. Haha, that's really incredible. The old man just laughed. Beru. Yep. Suho looked at Beru and asked, what is the probability that there are still other Itarim apostles around here? I'm still expanding my senses, but I can't feel anything around here right now. Alright, should I visit the place where the meteorite fell? Suho, who was lost in thought for a while, he finally found traces of Itarim for the first time. Old man, could you please guide me to where the meteorite fell? For sure. Suho arrived at the place where the meteorite fell. Young master, this is definitely the place. There is a lot of Itarim's energy in this area. Suho looked around. Indeed, a meteorite fell and the place had a huge crater dug wide. Beru continued to flick his antennae and searched for signs around. He quickly returned to Suho and reported. Fortunately, there doesn't seem to be another mad-blooded tyrant hiding. We can, and just check over there then. Suho approached the center of the crater. There, a small piece of star, the old man said, or a huge pile of stones from Suho's point of view, was buried in the ground. I'm going to dig a bit. Suho looked around and opened his mouth after confirming that there was no one around. Arise. Suho's shadow spread widely, and black steam rose from beneath it. Shadow Minotaur Lo 1. Night Class. Night Class 5 gigantic cows with solid muscular bodies appeared. The Shadow Minotaurs howled ferociously. With a single order from Suho, it seemed as if the enemy would be crushed and torn to shreds at any moment. Suho nodded and pointed at the meteorite. What are you doing? Moo! The Minotaurs crouched down and began digging with their muscular arms. Little by little, the meteorite that had been buried became visible. Master, I found something! Quietly controlling the Minotaurs in perfect order, Quay urgently called for Suho. Here, there is a hidden space. When Suho saw what Quay had found, his eyes flashed. There was an artificial hole in the side of the meteorite that looked like a pile of stones. Since he came hidden, could there be an entrance to some kind of spaceship? With force, he widened the hole a little more and looked inside. Inside was a pattern that was covered with blue flames. It seems like a shamanic circle made with the energy of Itarim. Beru muttered, squinting his eyes. Shaman? Do you know what kind of magic it is? Apparently, this is a high-level magic that increases the durability of the meteorite and expands the secret subspace within it. What is so grand about it? It's just some sort of storage, though. Chapter 105, Chapter 104. Do you even know how to open this warehouse? At Suho's question, Beru nodded coldly. At least this much of the shaman's staff can only be torn apart by force. Then, Beru flew to the shaman's staff and nicked the blue flames of the shaman's staff with his fingernails. Pusuk. At that moment, the flames of the shaman's camp faded, and the hidden space beyond opened its mouth. It is open. Suho immediately prepared for battle with 2 Vulcan horns in both hands. I didn't know what would come out of this. Unfortunately, however, the one waiting inside was not an enemy, rather the opposite. Obtained item, Devil's Essence. Essence of the Devil? Suho picked up a ball the size of a fist with a puzzled expression. Item's S. Difficulty to obtain? Type Jewel. This is a sealing sphere where countless demonic souls are sealed. Breaking it can free the demons. While checking the item information, the horn of the Vulcan held in the other hand vibrated, as if it's sad that you're full. Suho also licked his lips as if it was a waste. It's really too bad. If I had discovered this sooner, I would have been able to strengthen Vulcan's horns more easily. After Vulcan's quest was over, the demon's soul was no longer of any value to Suho. I'll take it to Essel and ask him. Suho put the Devil's Essence in his inventory. The demonic essence was not the end of the items in Itarim's warehouse. Your little lord, you found something important. Beru, who was rummaging through the warehouse just in time, found something and brought it back. Item: Itarim's slate has been obtained. Item: difficulty to obtain. Type: stone slate. A stone tablet with the language of Itarim engraved on it. A special spell is cast. Beru pretended to know. I know what this spell is. During the war, I clearly saw that Itarim's troops used this to communicate with each other. Communicating with stone tablets? Yes. The problem is that two of them are a pair, but seeing that there is only one here, the other one must be holding the other one, like the one who sent the mad tyrant this way. There is a very high probability of that. Suho stared at the stone slab of Itarim and thought about how to use it, but nothing came of it. Once you have this, there will be a day when you will use it. That side will contact you first. Suho put Itarim's slate into his inventory. Looks like I have nothing more to gain. I wondered if the mad tyrant had used this meteorite as a secret base for storing the demonic souls he had collected or contacting other apostles. Let's go back now. Where did you get this? As soon as Essel saw the essence of the devil, Suho handed him. He was astonished. Come and pick it up. Do you need it by any chance? I can feel the souls of a great number of demons in here. Could this be something from a mad-blooded tyrant? Suho nodded at Essel's quick-witted words. It seemed so. If you break this, the demon spirits will be released. Do you know what will happen if you release them? It is literally free. Demons don't die, even if only their spiritual bodies remain. While floating nearby, you will be possessed by an irrational creature or demon beast and reborn as a new demon. If I kill it then, level up? No, your brain is salted from leveling up. Essel shook her head and sighed as if she couldn't stop it at Suho's words. The newly born demons are so weak that they won't even help you level up. Rather, it would be much more helpful to recruit them as my own people and use them to rebuild this land. Okay? Then you have to break it right away. Shit. Suho immediately broke the demon's essence. Then, the spirit bodies of countless demons began to come out like fireworks. Wow! Yeah! Along with him, the dreary laughter was heard from all directions. Numerous specters trapped in the demon's essence spewed out evil energy while spinning around Suho and Essel. And in order to find tea, he delicious body in front of you and possess it, your mouth drools with sinister eyes. But they were quite quick-witted. All of a sudden, the owner of the body closest to them was Essel, a demon aristocrat, and they sneaked back, aiming for a more easygoing opponent. That's Suho, because he was only human. But the moment they saw Suho, they realized it. Because he was in a spiritual state, he had no choice but to know. Being human was just a shell. In the shadow of Suho, a deep and gigantic abyss spread far and wide like an abyss. The ghosts were much more surprised and began to run away than they found Essel. If you go in there, you will die. They were not just going to die, but a fear that even their souls would be eaten. Why are they like that? Don't mind. Now I'm going to find little things that I can understand and possess. Are demons born that way? That's right. Even if we die, as long as our souls remain, we can always possess another body and be reborn. That is the essence of spiritualization. The things that Essel had been possessed by the Sword of Protection were part of that ability. The devil never dies, only to be reborn. But the moment you get a new body, most of your previous memories disappear, so you can just say that you die. Essel muttered as she watched the demonic souls scattering away. They are probably the demons who fought against the mad tyrant. If they had been sealed separately, they would have been coveted souls even from the point of view of a mad-blooded tyrant. If they get a body and are reborn as demons, they will be of great help to us. It was a pleasant sound to hear. After that, Essel worked hard to unite all the demons of the land around the Colosseum. Slaves who dug ore for war got their freedom overnight. However, it was only the ruler who changed, but their daily lives did not change significantly. The gods from outer space are attacking? The mad tyrant was also a pawn of the foreign press. Somehow I thought it wasn't an ordinary devil. Then what about us now? Is there anything wrong? If enemies come in, just fight back, and that's it. Then you will need a weapon. Then, without question, the demons started picking up their pickaxes again. And even though he was not whipped by the demon guards, he began digging ore with his own will. That action was not because of Essil's orders. In the first place, demons were not a race that feared battle. Rather, they were not the ones who enjoyed fighting strong opponents and regretted it even if they were weak and were eaten. The reason for this was the belief that even if one dies, he or she becomes a ghost and is born anew. However, even for them, the existence of a mad-blooded tyrant was too frightening. The mad-blooded tyrant was a terrible guy who burned even the souls of demons with blue flames and took away their entire bodies. I can't be bothered by the Tyrant King again. Keh! It's a war. War. Let's prepare for war. For Radiru. For Essil Radiru, blood. A demon aristocrat, Essil, only appeared, but the demons began to unite around Essil. As much as that, the existence of pure blood had great value to the demons. Suho, who was watching these scenes, was curious and asked Beru, "What is pure blood? Why are they so actively obeying? Maybe that's what I think?" Vera nodded. "You're right. Only purebloods deserve to be demon lords. After all, they want Essil to become the new monarch one day. Only with a monarch can the demon realm, which has been torn into pieces like now, merge into one world again." When Suho first met Essil, Essil was clearly being chased by demons. But in the end, the demons just wanted to eat her and become a demon noble themselves. Furthermore, it must have been his will to rebuild the demon realm by gaining the qualifications to become a demon lord himself. "This is all thanks to you, Suho." Essil thanked Suho. "I still haven't regained my original strength. Even right now, if those demons attack all at once, it is certain that they will be eaten helplessly. But it's thanks to you that no one dares to think like that now." All the demons in the Colosseum watched Suho defeat the mad tyrant with overwhelming power from start to finish. As long as the very existence of the Guardian protected Essil Radiru, no demons would dare to challenge the Radiru family. But peace never came. The reason why the demons themselves are preparing for war now is because of the fear that a new rabid tyrant might appear with a meteorite at any time. In order to do that, first of all, I have to regain my original strength. With bloodstone? Now that I'm the owner of this land, I'm going to pick up some bloodstone from the lower demons and eat it. It's called a tribute. There were many uses of bloodstone, but the biggest one was for demon nobles to continuously absorb the blood of lower demons to maintain their power. But if you drink too much blood at once, all of your subordinates will die, and the number will gradually decrease. So the point is to continuously suck up metallurgy, now like this. Essil spread her hands wide toward the demons who had come to follow her. Okay. Whoops. A bit of blood was drawn from the demons' bodies and formed into small beads. Wow. It was truly spectacular to see dozens and hundreds of those black marbles flying towards Essil and being absorbed. Suho, who was watching Essil accepting the power with an ecstatic expression, could notice that the energy he felt from Essil had gotten a little stronger. "Did you see it? It's like this. Now it's just a matter of time before I get back to my original strength. But it's not like I can pick and eat bloodstone every day, so I have nothing else to do right now." Even if he came to rule the demons, he left the little things to the demon attendants anyway. Even the old devil, who was Vulcan's servant, had less work when Essil took it as his servant. Realizing what Essil was trying to say, Suho smiled and held out his hand. "Good. Then, for the time being, you'll work hard again as a member of my guild." "Yes, guild leader. Will you take good care of my salary? Even if I look like this, I am a noble in my hometown, so the ransom is a bit high." Essil smiled brightly and held Suho's hand. "Let's go back now, to Earth." Chapter 106, Chapter 105. Around that time, there was someone forgotten by everyone. Suho, Lim Do-gyun was dying. "Save me." Lim Do-gyun crawls on the floor with a white bandage wrapped around his body. The sight of him shaking his hands and desperately trying to get out of this hellish place was truly devastating. Suho, who witnessed this, closed his eyes tightly and turned his head away. "I'm sorry, bro." In the end, Lim Do-gyun's hand, which had been shaking, fell helplessly to the floor. But, excited, Amut's gigantic hand lifted his rag-wrapped body with ease. There are still 3 laps left. Lim Do-gyun, who was caught in his grip, struggled with both arms like a broken doll. But against his will, Amit forced his body to the ground and ordered it sternly and solemnly. If you have time to lick your mouth, run. Amit, please. No more. It is. No, really, my leg is broken. Trick your brain. If you think your legs aren't broken, you can run. Can you do it, you crazy crocodile? No, sir, it was just bullshit. I must have been dreaming for a moment. Kehe, it looks good. Your eyes are alive. Could you increase the gravity? Gravity doubled. Goo, when Amut snapped his finger, the heavy gravity field pressed down on Lim Do-gyun's body. Dudak? The already broken leg bones cracked again. Unfortunately, however, the item mummy's bandage, wrapped around his body, was forcibly holding his broken body. Thanks to that, Lim Do-kyun was able to run as much as he wanted, even with a broken leg, which was nothing to be thankful for. Heh, I don't like it. Why are you moving again? His eyes were loose and his saliva was dripping, but Im Do-gyun felt grateful and cursed that he was still alive. As Amut pushed his back with the gravitational field, Lim Do-gyun eventually trudged and started running again. The past few days, when Suho went to the devil world, Lim Do-gyun stayed for a while in the pyramid of Amut. The situation outside was too dangerous, so Suho temporarily evacuated him here. But here, an even more terrible hell awaited him. Right in front of my eyes, a huge muscular crocodile man was licking his lips at Lim Do-gyun, and the reason Amut licked his lips was never to eat him. Amut was very fond of such frail and worthless things as he was. Scent, yogo yogo. Kohu. My mouth watered. The chef's mind was as if he had just discovered fresh ingredients. Amut was thrilled just thinking about how to train this weak human scum to spread rumors that he raised him well. In particular, as Suho experienced, the gravitational field in this pyramid became heavier or lighter depending on Amut's will. If you use this system well, you should be able to train it to the limit by squeezing that skinny, wretched body to its maximum. And, no matter how much Lim Do-kyun refused, he had no right to veto, because no one who stepped into this pyramid escaped safely from Amut's clutches. Quack! The desperate screams of Lim Do-gyun resonated throughout the pyramid, but even that was only pleasing to Amut. Good, I still have a lot of energy. Oh no. Wait a minute. Adds one more round. Gazes were standing and watching Lim Do-gyun from afar. Corrupted mummies. They are the countless seniors who died while receiving strength body training from Amut until they were killed a long time ago. Even after death, they were workers who were forever trapped in this pyramid and were holding Amut's help. Originally, the dead don't talk. The mummies stared blankly at Lim Do-gyun with empty pupils, then turned their heads bitterly. Keheh. Don't worry too much. I've learned how to train just enough to not die anymore. It seems like that, but Suho was very sorry and bought a healing potion at the store. When the potion was poured into Lim Do-gyun's mouth, which had become a super dead sword, his pupils, which had disappeared, Ram focus, slowly began to regain strength. Ah, are you an angel? The power is coming back. Can I live? I didn't even have the spirit to wonder how Suho had this ability. Suho, thank you. Ho-oh, the power has returned. Now wait a minute. No, really no. At that moment, Lim Do-kyun looked at Suho with a desperate expression as Amut lit up his eyes as if he had waited. Suho met his eyes and nodded silently. If you haven't completed 10 kilometers yet, you should run. You traitor, training resumed. It was a little sorry for Lim Do-gyun, but Amut's training would definitely help him. Even if you can't level up like me, it's a good thing to do strength training to the limit. In fact, this was no different from Lim Do-gyun. Ordinary hunters couldn't grow through leveling up like Suho. However, that meant that it was impossible to grow the awakened ability, and everyone was doing mock combat training on how to use strength exercises and skills in battle. That was the reason hunters wanted to join a large guild in the first place. It was because the large guilds were systematically assisting the hunters' training by recruiting coaches who had trained national-level athletes at high cost. In that sense, Amut's rigid body training was actually a very good training method, even if it was very violent. In particular, the mummy's bandage and healing potion, which forcefully move the body even when bones are broken and muscles are torn, were able to transform the human body to the limit. Quah! Of course, I had to endure that much pain myself. Rather than that, he is a disciple. Did the affairs of the demon realm go well? Just then, Aunt looked back at Suho and asked how he was doing. Of course, I wouldn't ask out of curiosity. Suho intuitively realized what words would come out next. If it's all over, let's start chi training today. Just pretend to listen to the answer. Because this gym is so awful. Suho shook his head and stood next to Lim Dogyun himself. Gravity tripled. Start daily quest. Meanwhile, while Suho is on his way back to the devil world, the outside world was noisy as well. What? Are you saying our Suho still hasn't returned from the dungeon? Jinho Yu, Suho's uncle and CEO of Agentsoft, couldn't help but be surprised when he received the news that Suho, who had been attacking the dungeon, had not been heard from for several days. The secretary who relayed the fact to Yu Jinho also had a serious expression, because there were still more important facts left. Yes, of course, it's common for hunters to stay in dungeons for a long time, but this time it's not trivial. It is said that after Hunter Sung Suho entered the Pyeongtaek dungeon, the hunters of the Black Tortoise Guild followed suit. Black Tortoise Guild? Yu Jinho couldn't help but feel bad about the familiar name. Couldn't it be that there is a name called Lee Young-ho among the hunters who followed him? That's right, CEO. Black Tortoise Guild's manager Lee Young-ho said that he, who recently had a conflict with us, brought his subordinates to the Pyeongtaek Guild. Damn it! Jump! Yu Jinho couldn't help but stand up and pick up the phone. I will hire mercenaries right away and go in to rescue Suho. Also, contact the Black Tortoise Guild and ask where manager Lee Young-ho is now. Yes, all right. Yu Jinho was furious with the fact that Suho could be in danger. It's my fault. I could never have thought that manager Lee Young-ho would take his anger out on Suho for what went wrong this time. It was a mistake that no one thought that even the hunters would cross the line this far. However, if you look closely, it has only been 2 years since the profession of hunter was created in this world. No matter how diligently the Hunter Association made the Hunter Act and set its guidelines for action, it was unreasonable to correct the appearance of the rampaging gangsters who suddenly had supernatural powers. I forgot for a moment that there is a difference between hunter and villain in the end. Intoxicated with superhuman strength, countless hunters evaded the law and fulfilled their desires. Humans are greedy and selfish animals. Even before the cataclysm, isn't it human nature to commit all sorts of evil deeds if you have a lot of money? CEO, I have contacted the Black Tortoise Guild. By the way, just in time, the secretary delivered new news to Yu Jinho. Black Tortoise Guild manager Lee Young-ho also entered the dungeon and lost contact for several days. What? It was Yu Jinho who felt something strange at those words. According to the information, the third dungeon in Pyeongtaek where Suho entered was not a very difficult place. In the first place, wasn't it a place where I was going to stop by lightly to build a career to create a guild of guardians? In such a place, the Black Tortoise Guild, which was said to have followed immediately after the witch beasts, must have been a much more dangerous existence. If Suho's attacking party had clashed with them, it would have been time to finish the match by now. Connect with the Black Tortoise Guild right away. I will call you directly. Yu Jinho took over the phone with a scary expression. The secretary, who watched the sudden momentum from the side, got goosebumps. It's been a while since the CEO has been so angry. The secretary, who had been aiding him for a long time, remembered exactly when the moment he showed himself like this. Just a few years ago, when Sung Suho's parents suddenly went missing. Even then, Yu Jinho was extremely angry, and his eyes were turned upside down. And Yu Jinho at a time like this, no one can stop him, Chuck. Just then, the phone that Yu Jinho was holding connected to the Black Tortoise Guild. I got a call. I am the head of the Black Tortoise Guild. Change the guild leader right now. Yes, yes. A look of bewilderment returned to the phone over the phone because of the thick murderousness in Yu Jinho's voice. However, Yu Jinho had no intention of conversing with the general manager. Yu Jinho summoned the guild leader of the Black Tortoise Guild, growling ferociously like a beast that had lost its family. And the head of the Black Tortoise Guild, who knew who Yu Jinho was, did not dare to go against his words. I'll connect you to the guild leader. Yu Jinho asked his secretary, who was standing beside him at the same time, at a loss for what to do. Have the mercenaries been recruited? Yes, but since we're trying to recruit talented mercenaries, reservations have already been made. Tell me to double or triple the pay. Now we fight for the village. It was then. A text from Suho arrived on Yu Jinho's cell phone. What should I do with Uncle? This dungeon took a little longer, so the next dungeons I reserved were delayed a little. Chapter 107, Chapter 106. Huh, Suho. At that moment, Yu Jinho's expression, which had been cold and hardened, melted in one blow. Yu Jinho immediately grabbed the phone and shouted urgently, Suho, where are you now? Pick up the phone. Phone call. Day representative, you have to press the call button first. The secretary let out a sigh of relief when he returned to his normal state. Why is Uncle calling all of a sudden? Suho, who was taking a break after safely getting out of the Pyeongtaek dungeon, was confused when he received a sudden phone call from his uncle. I only sent one text message for trivial paperwork, so this was a problem usually dealt with on the secretary line. By the way, are you getting a call all of a sudden? Are you Suho? Is the hunter job worth doing? There was no such thing as a special accident. However, when I answered the phone, a very calm, adult, and a serious voice came from the other side. Your uncle. There were minor problems, but somehow they managed to come out well. Ah, it was a minor problem, right? Yes, very fortunate. How come your tone is a bit awkward? Is it because of your mood? Isn't there something wrong with your uncle? Haha. What could happen to me? I am unharmed. Safe? Suho, who couldn't guess the situation, was just confused. It must have been a no-nonsense phone call. However, Yu Jinho, who was checking on Suho's safety again, sneakily added a word before hanging up the phone. Probably, the Black Tortoise Guild will contact you sooner or later. I'll listen to pretty much anything, so try to negotiate well. As soon as the phone call with Yu Jinho ended, I got a call from the Black Tortoise Guild almost at the same time. And as soon as I pressed the call button, an unknown person screamed loudly. I'm really sorry, Hunter Sung Suho. It was only then that the face of Chief Lee Young-ho, whom he met right before entering the demon world, came to Suho's mind. Ah, I completely forgot. Didn't that man fight with me and get killed by demons? It was Suho who had completely forgotten about Lee Young-ho because the battle in the demon realm had been a bit long. The manager of the Black Tortoise Guild even dragged the Second Army hunters who were threatening to interfere with him. Suho remembered him with a vague expression. I used it sparingly as a shadow soldier. Thanks to that, the demons were also handled well. I wonder if he has gone to a good place now. It was Suho who prayed for a moment of peace for Chief Lee Young-ho, who was killed by the devil and became a shadow soldier, but now returned to nothing. However, I don't know what he heard from Yu Jinho, but the Black Tortoise Guild had been unconditionally apologizing without any explanation. If you're not rude, we'd like to visit you personally for a while and apologize formally. Would that be okay? Meet you? At that time, Lim Do-kyun, who had been eavesdropping on Suho's phone call with his ears pricked up next to him, blinked his eyes and nodded furiously. Meet me. Nod. That's right. Suho couldn't help but nod his head at the tremendous pressure. I am so sorry. He was the head of the Black Tortoise Guild, bending 90 degrees in front of Suho and Lim Do-kyun. It is our staff's fault, but it is the responsibility of our Black Tortoise Guild for not properly managing our staff. I'm really sorry, Hunter Sung Suho. Is a mere verbal apology worthwhile? In front of him, Lim Do-kyun was crossing his legs in a most arrogant posture, and as if to leave this to him, he winked hard at Suho with a wink. Suho just smiled dejectedly. However, even if he looked so clumsy, Lim Do-kyun was elite in his own way. He was Suho's direct senior who graduated from Korea University's Department of Painting, the best art school in Korea, at the top of his class. That means that. It means that the nunchi skill is at the highest level. Being a teaching assistant was a job where I had to deal with high-ranking professors. At the same time, as a middle manager who was good at dealing with subordinates, that is, students, it was a very difficult job to survive while being hit up and down. However, the head of the Black Tortoise Guild in front of them was also a high-ranking person whom Lim Do-gyun would not normally dare to meet. But now you've become our precious Ul. Hehe. Seeing Lim Do-gyun rubbing his hands together and smiling slyly, the head of the Black Tortoise Guild turned pale. This won't be easy. Lim Do-gyun backed by CEO Yoo Jin-ho. He was exuding the aura of a warrior who had gone through a reversal under the protection of the president, or the highest school president. Come on, Chief. Do you admit that the third dungeon in Pyeongtaek is the dungeon we reserved first? Yes. Then do you admit that the large guild, Black Tortoise Guild, unilaterally tried to take it away from small hunters like us? I don't know the exact circumstances, but it must have been some kind of procedural error. Ah, yes, there may have been a mistake. So I got the video recorded on the CCTV in front of the Pyeongtaek dungeon. Looking at the head of the Black Tortoise Guild, who shuddered at those words, Lim Do-gyun smiled the most wickedly. Shall we watch this video first and continue talking? Looking at Lim Do-gyun's eyes, as if he was resentful of evil, the head of the Black Tortoise Guild already sensed defeat. I'm going to rip it hard. What kind of harm did this guy get from manager Lee Young-ho, so he lost his eyes? But he won't even know. In fact, it was Amit, not manager Lee Young-ho, who harmed Lim Do-gyun just a moment ago. Lim Do-gyun thought sincerely. If it wasn't for manager Lee Young-ho, he wouldn't have met Amit. However, there was nothing special about the CCTV footage that Lim Do-gyun showed. It was just that the two of them had a minor quarrel in front of the dungeon. After checking the video to the end with a lot of tension, the general manager's complexion suddenly turned bright. Hey, what is this? CEO Jinho Yoo even stepped in to do just this? Anyway, that nobleman's disobedience is really serious. He let out a sigh of relief, saying that this could be solved with just a few pennies. But just then Beru, who had been on an errand for Suho, arrived. Little lord, I brought out the corpses you said. What Beru dragged along was none other than the corpses of manager Lee Young-ho and his gang. It was kept in the shadow dungeon in case it would be useful. Bodies that looked like they had been attacked by demons. The general manager of the Black Tortoise Guild, who confirmed the fact at a glance, turned pale. No, these people aren't just hunters who will die in the Pyeongtaek dungeon, so how could this happen? Of course, this would not have been the case under normal circumstances. Unfortunately, during the raid on us, we were attacked by demon beasts. Starting with the results, Suho and Lim Do-gyun firmly ripped off the damage compensation for the tyranny of the Black Tortoise Guild. Reward money? That, of course, was taken for granted, and he received even more important things than money. It's a career. For Suho to establish a guild, what was more important than money was the dungeon. Suho, Lim Do-gyun, and Essel were close to the rookie mercenary group, which is currently maintained with only 3 hunters. So, finding a dungeon to attack in order to build a career was the most difficult thing. Of course, if you tried to join another raid, it was possible, but that was a problem, as it was. It was because if Suho moved along with the pace of the other hunters, the level-up efficiency would not come out, and it would take longer to clear the dungeon. However, the Black Tortoise Guild helped with that. No, rather than helping, the expression that I was robbed unilaterally was more appropriate. We'll share about 10 of our dungeons. Of course, each dungeon is not eat, but it will be enough for careers to create a guild. The manager is really a good person. Are you an angel? Then you're the devil, you bastard. He was the general manager of the Black Tortoise Guild who wanted to spit on Lim Do-gyun's brightly smiling face. He was a guy I really didn't want to mess with again. Ha! You really got a good bite. He gnashed his teeth inside. Anyway, all of this was the fault of manager Lee Young-ho. I don't know how much damage the guild suffered because of that idiot. It's not just a matter of money, but if you count the fact that you and CEO Jinho Yoo have suffered because of this incident, you have suffered an astronomical loss. Yes, let's think of it as an investment anyway. The head of the Black Tortoise Guild changed his mind. Anyway, accidents can happen anytime, anywhere, and after all, isn't the important thing to do? Since they actively compensated for the damages to this extent, CEO Jinho Yoo must have felt relieved a little bit. Okay, Let's use this incident as an opportunity to request that our guild be included in the Level Up project once again. Thinking so, the head of the headquarters talked to Suho indirectly after he finished organizing the damage compensation. I am really sorry about this. Even if it is not compensation for damage this time, we plan to help Hunter Sung Suho in the future. Contact us anytime. Oh, and hopefully, talk to my uncle well. It was then. Chief Bo, it's a big deal. Oh, what else? Just as he was about to bring up the most important topic, he was suddenly called by a subordinate in a hurry. He endured his frown and asked for Suho's understanding for a moment. Sorry, my staff is a bit inconsistent. What the hell are you making a fuss about? However, even though the boss at work was very angry and glared at him, the employee of the Black Tortoise Guild showed him the screen of the phone he was holding. Look at this article. It is said that this person has just arrived in Korea. Who the hell is coming? Huh? After checking the picture of the internet news he was holding out, the general manager opened his eyes wide and hurriedly accepted his phone. Suho and Lim Do-kyun, who became curious at the same time, glanced at the cell phone screen and soon saw very provocative headlines. Goliath arrived in Korea. Why is the Scavenger Guild's guild leader in Korea? Gray-haired old Goliath, a white-haired old man. In the photo, a muscular old man with white hair resembling a lion's mane was walking out of Incheon International Airport wearing sunglasses. Among the hunters, there is no one who does not know this old man's name. Thomas Andre? Why did this person suddenly come to Korea? A group of accidents that bring issues everywhere they go came to Korea. Chapter 108, Chapter 107, Thomas Andre. He was the master of America's representative large guild, the Scavenger Guild. Despite being an old man in his 70s, he was a world-class star who was active as an S-class hunter. The reason why he bothered to describe him as a star was because he was a celebrity who had already achieved so much even before he awakened as a hunter. Devil in the ring. Thomas Andre was the strongest UFC fighter that no one dared to match even before his awakening. A time when there was no such thing as magical powers or monsters on Earth. Since he was in his 20s, he had already been an MMA fighter who had won the title of humanity's strongest with his pure force. Numerous challengers challenged his stronghold, but none could surpass him. In the end, he tried to retire without experiencing a single defeat. God did not allow his retirement. After Cataclysm, Thomas Andre, who was spending his old age leisurely drinking coffee with a friend, woke up before anyone else. As an S-class hunter, and revealing his overwhelming force to the world, he began catching and killing the monsters that appeared in the United States like rats. Ha! This is real power. How weak I was before. From then on, he had his second heyday. It was then that his nickname of the Devil in the Ring was replaced by a new nickname, Goliath. He was able to perfectly control his highly developed body even before he had magical powers, so it was very easy for him to adapt to his awakened ability. That's easy. Doesn't this feel like I've regained the power that originally belonged to me? He showed his strength to the fullest, like a fish in water. In the meantime, he realized how narrow the square ring he was confined to was. When fighting people, I couldn't bear to tear them to death, but I could tear the beasts apart as much as I wanted. In addition, the former becomes a murderer and is criticized by everyone, but the latter receives praise and gratitude from people even if they commit as much as they like. What a wonderful world. Ha ha ha! Where is the magic beast again? Ha ha ha! Anyone who saw him brutally killing beasts with his bare hands, even through video media, would leave similar reviews. And, I don't know who the devil is. Rather, the beasts look pitiful. Please stop hating the beasts. What if the beasts become extinct because of Thomas? Isn't it necessary to create a beast protection group? S-class hunters are quite rare, but there are still a lot of them worldwide, and each of them possessed an overwhelming force no less than that of Thomas Andre. However, it was impossible to compete for supremacy between S-class hunters because they did not have to fight each other. However, when someone said that Thomas Andre was the strongest hunter, no one dared to disagree. And the organization created around him was the Scavenger Guild. The only thing the Scavenger Guild revere is power. As a result, most of the hunters who gathered in the Scavenger Guild were also radical, and these days the United States was rather struggling because of their tyranny. To think that the head of such a guild would suddenly visit Korea. After confirming the news, the head of the Hyunmoo Guild swallowed dryly. It was not easy for a person who was usually an S-class hunter to visit a foreign country unless there was a special purpose. The reason was simple, because it's dangerous. They are literally walking combat weapons. It was because they were dangerous people who could overthrow even one city in an instant if they wanted to. Especially, Thomas Andre was by far the most dangerous person among them. What the hell is going on? Why did Thomas Andre come to Korea? It seems like reporters are doing interviews in real time, but they are just saying things that I don't know what they mean. You don't know? What the hell are you talking about? The employee of the Hyunmoo Guild, who was skimming through the interviews uploaded in real time at the urging of Tom, headquarters, opened his mouth with his eyes fixed on his cell phone. Prophecy. Huh? You said you came because of the prophecy? Prophecy? Suddenly what? I flinched. At that moment, Suho, who was listening to their conversation from the side, subtly hardened his expression. For a moment, maybe it's the Scavenger Guild? There was a moment that flashed through my mind. The Scavenger Guild and the prophecy. Just in time, Verto popped out of the shadows and looked at Suho. Little Lord, it seems that the guys I met at the pyramid last time also said something similar. I can't believe it. Ver did drive a wedge into Suho, who had a shy expression on his face. I'm sorry, but do you remember the proverb that you can't help but catch people? When I was young, when I was studying proverbs, I remember teaching me. It was then. Ah, I found it. Broadcast live. Coincidentally, Lim Dogjin found and played the personal broadcasts of YouTubers at the airport. Just in time, Thomas Andre was answering the reporter's questions in the video. A white-haired old man. The rugged, muscular old man lifted up the sunglasses he was wearing, stared straight at the approaching screen, and opened his mouth. Yes, I came because of the prophecy. What? Do you speak Korean? Curiously, as a Native American, he was fluent in Korean. Heh, what is the prophecy? Could I possibly tell you that with my bare mouth? Even his pronunciation was very Korean-like, as if you have been practicing for a long time. Thomas Andre said with a sly grin. Anyway, the prophecy is over, and now I'm going to find the messenger of death who killed my guild members. Messenger of death? Death tiger? Is it correct to use this word in this case? Suho was convinced the moment he heard his last words. It's me. It's a small monarch. While everyone was watching Thomas Andre's video with interest, only Suho made eye contact with Ver and nodded with an awkward expression. This was no excuses. Manager Lee Young-ho would rather have died at the hands of demons because it was certain that Suho had killed the hunters from the Scavenger Guild who fought in the Pyramid of Amit. Of course, that side attacked me first, but it's okay to be like that. More than that, it seems that the evidence was destroyed, but this was discovered. Ah, could it be that the Asura Guild, who saved me then, opened its mouth? I should have killed him then. Rather than that, I'm a bit concerned about the prophecy. If it had been Suho not too long ago, he would not have believed in a prophecy that catches floating clouds as superstition. However, once he realized that his father was a divine being, he could not pass away even something shamanistic like a prophecy. Not to mention, Thomas Andre, the strongest S-class hunter, couldn't have come to Korea after seeing today's horoscope. If that prophecy then... Suho recalled the prophecy he had heard in Egypt. Sooner or later, life born from death will awaken from its seal, and that power will raise the dead. I think it was said to be a prophecy of some fortune teller, but now that I think about it again, it seems to be referring to me. At that time, it was the Scavenger Guild that came to the pyramid after hearing the prophecy, so there was a high probability that the prophecy mentioned by guild leader Thomas Andre was similar. That means eventually. It's me too. What are you going to do? If he really came to visit the little lord... Ver looked at Suho with a concerned expression. However, Suho only shrugged his shoulders with a shameless expression. Ah, what? What would he do without proof? I brought the entire pyramid. Let's just insist that we didn't do it, Bear thought. It seems that Nim has matured a lot lately. It was Ver who nodded happily, saying that he seems to be gradually becoming more like his father. Huh! How dare you block my way? As soon as Thomas Andre came out of the airport, he saw the Korean Association hunters who stood in his way and smiled with interest. His expression was like a bad boy contemplating how to disassemble this toy, and the Association hunters who faced him shuddered. Thomas Andre's sudden visit is against international law. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk, who had led the Association's hunters, stepped forward, suppressing his fear. Are you the captain here? As the shadow of Thomas Andre was cast over Team Leader Han Jae-hyuk's face, Team Leader Han Jae-hyuk gritted his teeth with a determined expression. My life ends here. Seeing Goliath, the worst S-class hunter in history, up close, the pressure was no joke. As if on purpose, the suffocating energy that radiated from Thomas Andre's body was weighing heavily on Team Leader Han Jae-hyuk. At that time, Thomas Andre's female secretary sighed lightly next to him and opened her mouth. Thomas, play around with that, and since you're tired, let's go find a place to stay. As soon as the female secretary finished talking, the pressure that had been weighing down Team Leader Han Jae-hyuk disappeared like a lie. Omg. Team Leader Han Jae-hyuk, who almost collapsed on the spot when his legs gave out at the moment, kept his eyes on Thomas Andre, who was chatting with the female secretary out of breath. Ew? Aren't I tired yet? I am tired. It seems like you keep forgetting, but I'm not an awakener like you. Aha! Yes! Our Laura shouldn't be tired. Let's go to the hotel and adjust to the jet lag. Thomas Andre burst into laughter at the bitter remarks of his female secretary, Laura, who had already been accompanying him for 30 years, and strode past the Association hunters. Wait a minute! Thomas Andre, stand there! Thomas Andre, who had been walking forward at the cry of team leader Han Jae-hyuk, who urgently called him from behind, looked back and smiled. You know what? No one has ever dared to stand in my way in my life. Creepy. A ferocious force that could only be felt from a giant monster began to radiate from his body again. Thomas. At that moment, Laura's voice stopped him from behind again. However, this time, Thomas Andre's runaway could not be stopped. He warned the Association hunters with the most ferocious momentum. Can you hear me? If I say go, I go. If you want to stop me, bring at least S-class hunters from your country, not yours. Thomas. Oh. The airport was shaking as if it were about to collapse due to the terrible energy he emitted. Thomas. Stop it, Laura. No matter how you are. I got a taxi. Oh, already? At that moment, the air in the airport instantly became lighter, as if all the fears had been lies. The people who were weighed down by the fear suddenly came to their senses and turned their eyes to Thomas Andre. Oh, it's narrow. He was trying hard to cram his huge body into a taxi. Chapter 109. Chapter 108. Korean taxis are too small. Thomas, the taxis here are of the same size as the taxis in America. Aha! Okay? Well, I must have taken a taxi before. Thomas Andre forced his colossal body into the back seat of the cab and talked to Laura in the front seat. But is the hotel still far away? I have to go a long way. I heard you want to stay at the best hotel in Korea. I didn't know it would be this far. Listening to their conversation, the taxi driver quietly broke into a cold sweat in front of them. I'm scared to death. I burned it for no reason. I can't believe this foreigner is the famous Thomas Andre. It's not an exaggeration at all. It was clear that the moment he stretched even a little, this taxi would be crumpled like a sheet of paper. Oh, uncomfortable. Shouldn't you have waited a little longer and got a bigger car? Hey, why are you so blocked today? Hurry! Hurry. Every time he wriggled behind him, the taxi driver's spirit seemed to fly away. So Laura. Thomas's eyes, crumpled in the back seat, suddenly became serious, and he brought up the main topic that had flown all the way to Korea. Did you find out Sung Suho's current location? I'm still inquiring, but it won't be long. Even so, from the moment Laura got into the taxi, she kept looking at the work he had entrusted to her on her tablet PC. With cool blue eyes, she said while quickly skimming through the information sent by U.S. employees on her tablet. It is easy to find out the contact information of hunters in Korea. Because the land is so narrow, there is a saying that no matter where the hunters are, if they fall down, they are within reach. When you fall down, your nose touches you. That's an interesting expression. It was neither a proverb nor an exaggeration. Hunters with excellent physical abilities, especially Thomas Andre's physical abilities, could be reached in an instant in a small country like Korea with just a little bit of running around. By the way, Thomas, is the character of the prophecy Sung Suho right? That's for sure. No matter how old you are still not old enough to get dementia. Of course, I do not doubt him. But isn't this prophecy too specific compared to the previous prophecies? Hey, not really. Maybe the old woman got better at prophesying as she got older. Originally, fortune tellers look more spiritual as they get older, don't they? Thomas smirked and remembered the face of Norma Selner, the prophetess who had sent him here. Although she is in the same position as her, she is also really amazing. I would never have thought that he would be able to survive by waking up almost on the verge of death. It is very fortunate. Thomas, your one and only friend, almost passed away. Wasn't Laura my friend? I'm sorry, but we're only business partners. In spite of Laura's firm answer, Thomas only giggled as if he was having fun. Just then, Laura's eyes, which had been reading the vast amount of information on the tablet, stopped at one point. I found it. Hunter Sung Suho. Oh, okay. What are you doing? If this information is correct, Thomas' eyes flashed as he found a delicious prey. However, Laura continued her explanation with a frown. A C-class summoner. What? Summoner? Besides, he's a C-rank hunter? How is that so? Since the information was recently registered, there will be almost no errors, and you know that Korean mana power meters are quite good. Is there a possibility that it is another hunter with the same name? Of course it is possible. It's not like there aren't people with the same name. You will know that when you meet and check it in person, or just give it a good night's sleep and come back. Thomas Andre muttered with a smirk, as if he were on his way to a delicious restaurant. But he'll have to hit it anyway. If someone dares to make me walk in vain, Honey Chestnuts could get very sick. It was a trip that he started last night impulsively, but this trip to Korea was very important to him. Glacier Dungeon. According to Norma Selner's prophecy, the help of Sung Suho, a Korean hunter, was essential to attack the place. And Norma Selner, who always made confusing prophecies by writing examples and metaphors that seemed familiar and unknown, picked it up this time and told me the name Sung Suho's. This was by no means something to be ignored, especially to Thomas Andre, who has been friends with her for decades. It's Korea. He was soaked in reminiscence while admiring the scenery of Korea passing by outside the taxi. It was definitely the first time I came to Korea in my life. However, the reason why he's fluently speaking Korean was because Norma Selnar suddenly suggested that he learn Korean a long time ago. Thomas, I feel very free now that I am retired. How about learning Korean, at least during this time? Korean? What is that? There is a country called Korea in East Asia. It's the language there. Why do I have to learn the language of that country all of a sudden when I'm old? Once you learn it, it might come in handy later. Holy shit, if Grandma says something like that, if you don't learn it, you'll be in big trouble. It was from then. He started learning Korean without knowing English. Norma Selner was a famous prophet even before her awakening. Of course, she announced her retirement, saying that her ability to predict had disappeared a long time ago, but nevertheless, she was a celebrity who occasionally was asked for advice from political and business figures whenever there was an important matter. If such a person said, "Learn Korean," without context, there was no choice but to learn Korean diligently, even if it was embarrassing. Then later, I became completely immersed in Korean dramas. Thomas had been thinking about it for a while. Maybe the old woman told me to watch a drama because I was retiring and looked so bored, or that I first saw my future living in Korean dramas. It was Thomas who until recently had only thought about Korea that much. However, since he came all the way to Korea in search of a hunter named Sung Suho, he thought maybe this was the future Norma Selner saw. It's Korea. I can't. My body is itching. I can't stand it. Thomas Andre's expression, which had been lost in thought, suddenly changed. Laura, I'm really sorry, but let's meet him first before we go to the hotel. What do you mean? You're okay, right? You aren't tired, right? Of course I am tired. it's become quite gentlemanly to ask out of courtesy when you're going to do whatever you want anyway. Awesome. I never thought I would hear such compliments from Laura. It's an insult. Anyway, I already found the address of Sung Suho, so please go there. Little Lord. Beru's expression was more tense than ever. On the other hand, Suho was just restless. No, do I really have to move? How did the foreigner know where my house is? I'm sorry, but it seems that the master's personal information is now public property. Goo. A huge energy was running in a straight line towards Suho, who was resting at home for a long time. At first, I thought it was a dungeon break, or at least I thought that a monster like the Minotaur would come running. But it was a person, a foreigner too. Coincidentally, the famous S-class hunter I saw on the news during the day was rushing towards this side with great honesty. Quachik! 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 It was such an enormous nuisance that the sidewalk blocks collapsed with a wobble whenever his legs stepped off the ground. Suho sighed and greeted him outside the house. There was no doubt that he was his target, as he ran so blatantly with energy. Oh, what? Could it be that you came to meet me? Eventually, Thomas Andre arrived in front of Suho. Suho just lifted his head and looked up at his face with a curious expression. How could a gray-haired grandfather be so muscular? The big old man, who looked at least 2 inches taller than Suho, had bulging muscles all over his body, vividly, exuding his presence. With his level, I'd have been able to beat the Minotaur without magic. Suho reflected for a moment. I felt quite strong after leveling up recently, but like Beru's expression, I seriously considered whether I was still at the level of an ant larva. Thomas Andre lightly put Laura, a middle-aged female secretary who had been carrying it around his side with his big forearm, and asked Suho directly, "Are you Sung Suho?" Wow, this foreign grandfather speaks Korean well. If Amut was a human, it would have felt like this. What? Are you so scared that your mouth froze? Most do, though. As Suho didn't answer and just stared blankly at him, Thomas Andre smiled and showed his teeth in earnest. Wah! At that moment, tremendous speculation erupted from his whole body and began to press Suho. Still, you have to squeeze out an answer. If you don't want to die, that is. No, it's all like this? Is there any grandfather who does not have such a case? Suho was dumbfounded and looked at him blankly. For now, I'm Sung Suho, but what kind of business does the old man have for me to come to see me so late at night? What? Old man? Thomas' expression crumpled at Suho's words. Because I studied Korean diligently, the meaning was automatically translated into his head. Old man. Ha ha ha. Have you ever seen such a cheeky bustard? Laura, did you hear how dare this cocky bustard call me an old man? What? So that's how it works? Suho was genuinely perplexed. But in fact, no cowardly man dared to tell Goliath Thomas Andre that he was old. Okay, I will personally confirm that you are really the Sung Suho of the prophecy. Thomas took control of the entire area, spewing out even greater speculation than just a moment ago. Coo, quachik, quachik. At the same time, an ignorant energy oppressed the space, and the ground they were standing on began to crack as if an earthquake had struck. Knowing that this would happen, Laura, who had been far away early, was shaking her head as if she couldn't stop it. In this ignorant gravitational field like a natural disaster, Suho is goo. For a moment, Thomas Andre felt a chill. How can a mere C-class hunter stand still, enduring his own magic field? Chapter 110. Chapter 109. Goo. Ha. Suho, who was under the weight of an enormous magical field, was not taken aback or scared, but rather sighed. There was another human like Amut here. Whether it's the size or the age, he couldn't understand why the old men he encountered were all so tough. What's this? You can withstand this? Thomas Andre was genuinely perplexed. According to Laura's information, Suho was only a C-class hunter, and the energy you feel when you see Suho right in front of you is B-level, no matter how high you put it. But what kind of situation is this? Even if he didn't really exert his strength, it was a magical field that could crush at least one guy like this. But how? How can he bear this? But there was a fact he hadn't guessed at all. Hunters aren't all about magical power. Didn't even Thomas Andre himself possess a highly developed physical ability that was already called the strongest of mankind, even before awakening? When the overwhelming physical power was accompanied by magic, the synergy was indescribable. But that was the same for Suho. Oh. Hunter's rank is determined by the amount of magical power possessed, and obviously, Suho's magic power was relatively low compared to Thomas. But as far as strength goes, it's not like I've been trained in vain. A confident smile appeared on Suho's lips as he took Thomas Andre's magic field head-on. Daily quest, strength body training. With this alone, Suho was steadily receiving 3 stat points a day, and all of that was based only on strength stats. The results were being displayed right now, at this very moment. I'm familiar with the gravitational field. Huh? Are you smiling? When Thomas saw Suho's relaxed expression, sparks flew in Thomas's eyes. You dare to laugh in front of me? Whoop! At that moment, sincerity began to enter the energy that was radiating from Thomas. Then, Suho's expression began to harden little by little, and he said, he changed his mind. Thomas went beyond simply fighting the flag and reached out to grab Suho's neck with his huge hand. Even if you are the child of the prophecy, I will first organize the ranks and lead you. Whoa. At this point, Suho had to make a decision. Will you fight or retreat? However, Suho had already decided from the beginning. Of course I have to fight. Suho brightened his eyes with curiosity and began to raise his energy in earnest. I got a chance to fight an S-class hunter. It was just what I was curious about. Apostle of Itarim. It's not Itarim, it's just one of their henchmen, and after struggling so hard, I narrowly won. It shouldn't be like this. I just couldn't stop at that point. To ultimately reach the place where my father is. To stand proudly by my father's side and wage war against Itarim. Shouldn't I at least become the strongest among humans? If it's only to the point of being defeated by a human, then you don't even have the right to set foot on the battlefield where your father is standing anyway. So I was curious. From the moment I learned that Thomas Andre, an S-class hunter who was nicknamed the strongest of mankind, came to Korea. How strong is the S-class? That thought didn't leave my head. But what kind of windfall is this to come from the other side first? Quack! Just like that, Suho held the hands of Thomas Andre, who was approaching. The tremendous grip you feel at that moment. What? For a moment, I saw Thomas Andre's expression with his eyebrows raised in interest. In an unexpected situation, the corner of his mouth twitched and went up. Are you serious? Are you sure you want to fight with me right now? It was absurd. The reason why Thomas visited Korea in the first place was not because he thought highly of Suho, but because of Norma Selner's prophecy. I came all the way here to try to attack the Glacier Dungeon. The Glacier Dungeon was a demonic realm that even the Scavenger Guild couldn't readily challenge. As the name suggests, it was as a very difficult environment to endure just by entering the dungeon covered in extreme cold. Even because of the presence of powerful magic beasts, many hunters have set foot there, but have not been able to return. In fact, there was a hunter who used strength in the Scavenger Guild, but there was also a case where he led his subordinates confidently, saying that the cold was nothing, and then returned after suffering a lot and just before freezing to death. Norma Selner prophesied that a Korean hunter named Sung Suho would be helpful in clearing the dungeon that even the Scavenger Guild had not been able to clear. Right after that, Thomas Andre decided to go to Korea. But to my dismay, when I arrived in Korea, I saw that the Sung Suho in the prophecy was only a sea-level summoner. I dared to look funny to such a guy. Just kill me? To begin with, Thomas Andre had never experienced a situation in his life where he had to ask someone for a favor like this. If you want something, you just order and direct. So now he was seriously thinking about it. If I pull this ridiculous guy's arms off his shoulders, will Korean healers be able to fix it? Or tearing all limbs apart? Thomas, calm down. Laura, who felt that the situation was not serious from afar, heard a voice urgently dissuading him. Thomas, you don't intend to kill him, do you? Don't forget our purpose. But when he felt like this, no one could stop Thomas. No matter how old he is truly a villain on the battlefield. Because there was no history of sending a child who dared to show off his strength in front of him alive. Rather, he gave more strength to the arms that held Suho's hands. Don't worry, Laura, what a wonderful world these days are. No matter how broken I am, the healers will save me. Ha ha ha! His forearms swelled up as he let out a ferocious laugh. However, the problem was that Suho, who confronted him, also showed it with an extremely ferocious expression. Come as much as you like. The strength skill. The strength skill alleviates the pain. Every time I practiced rigid physical training, the bones in my body were broken and shattered, so this level of pain was a daily occurrence. Amut is always emphasized. Even in such pain, drawing out the power of the whole body is a true warrior. The master and the disciple. Suho could now wholeheartedly agree with Amut's words. Numerous mad-blooded demons he encountered in the demon realm. They had already spread the photohemorrhagic poison all over their bodies, so just being alive was painful. Even amid the pain, they were warriors who burned their will to fight with only one thought: to kill and eat their opponents. Isn't Suho himself the one who killed all those demons and survived until now? If the opponent only attacks by force, there is a good chance. Suho sincerely intended to win the contest of strength against Thomas Andre. Kwa! Ha! Kwa kwa kwa! As the energy of Suho and Thomas Andre clashed in earnest, a typhoon of tremendous magical power raged in all directions centered on the two. Everything in sight began to shatter. Thomas! Thomas! Stop it! Even in the midst of this, Laura's voice desperately trying to stop Thomas resonated like an echo. But then, kick! There was a black sedan that just arrived there. The door opened, and the person who stepped out was none other than Yu Jinho. Whoa, fortunately it's not too late. Quickly grasping the situation, he checked the safety of Suho, who was in confrontation with Thomas Andre, and wiped his heart. Yu Jinho, who had been checking Suho's situation in real time because of the Hunmu Guild today. He received word from his secretary a while ago that Thomas Andre, an S-rank hunter who had visited Korea today, was heading towards Suho's house. If I hadn't had memories of my previous life, I would have passed it on unintentionally. Yu Jinho was a person whose memories of the now-forgotten time period had returned, and he clearly remembered what kind of person Thomas Andre was. And it was never a good memory that I'm afraid to even think about. The only thing he did in that memory was to struggle in pain and let out a scream. I never thought I'd encounter the scavenger guild like this again. It was a shock. No matter how old he became, Thomas Andre was still Thomas Andre. Yu Jinho could find himself feeling a surge of fear just by looking at his face. Of course, even in his memories of the past, Thomas had never directly harmed him. However, he was captured by the hunters of the Scavenger Guild, who were his subordinates, and was tortured until he died. And I remembered exactly why. At the time, I was my older brother's only weakness. Recalling himself who was so helpless at the time, Jinho Yu gritted his teeth. And the moment I heard the news that the Scavenger Guild had come to Korea again, Yu Jinho had no choice but to order his staff to find out and report his every move in real time, because I was afraid. The Thomas Andre he remembers was a man who didn't know where to go. If the self at that time was Sung Jinwoo's only weakness, because Suho became that kind of person this time. I had no intention of taking any more time. I don't know what purpose Thomas came to Suho, but there was only one way to solve this situation. Yu Jinho immediately recognized his secretary, Laura, and quickly approached her. And standing next to him, with an extremely serious expression, stopped this contextless flag fight. Thomas Andre, Yu Jinho called his name clearly in a calm and respectful tone. Since he is an S-class hunter, he'll be aware of everything happening around him even during this chaos, and therefore his voice will reach his ears anyway. My name is Jinho Yu. I am Yu Jinho, CEO of Agensoft. Qua qua qua. The whole world was shaking, as if the world was about to change, but he just spoke his own words. If I don't step back right away, I'll have no choice but to stop you. What? Wriggling Thomas, who was thoroughly focused only on Suho, reacted to those words for the first time. He already knew that a new person had approached nearby. However, the energy I can feel from Yu Jinho is only D-class. The cheeky guy in front of me is also not enough. So this time, even that stupid fool dares to talk nonsense to himself. Thomas glared at Yu Jinho with an expression that was truly absurd. What else are you? What is the company president like? You were freaking out because you wanted to die. Thomas, stop it. At that time, Laura, who was next to Yu Jinho, shouted with a more serious expression than ever. CEO Jinho Yu is the largest shareholder of our guild. Oh, that is who he is. At that moment, Thomas's aura completely disappeared. Chapter 111, Chapter 110. Thomas Andre sat across from Suho with an embarrassed expression. And next to them were his secretary Laura and Representative Yu Jinho. Sorry. Unconditionally, Thomas is the fault of this human being. I ask for mercy. Ignoring Thomas, Laura was apologizing to Suho and Yu Jinho on behalf of him. In particular, he had no choice but to pray unconditionally to Yu Jinho, the major shareholder of the Scavenger Guild. Stop talking, Thomas, and apologize first. Huh. No, I own the Scavengers. Why do it for just a few pennies? The moment our stock is cut in half because of CEO Yu Jinho, just know that your earnings will also cut in half. I am sorry. I was a bit late, CEO Yu Jinho. It was Thomas Andre, who hesitantly straightened up at Laura's words and sat down. Even so, he didn't forget to add a few words. Heh, heh. This is all happening because I am not good at Korean, so let's just laugh and pass it on. For that matter, your pronunciation is really good. Even if you said you are Korean, I would believe you. This is because I am such a fan of Korean dramas. I've been watching a lot of revenge lately, so my Korean is a bit on the extreme side. Thomas, just apologize. Just apologize. Laura let out a sigh and shook her head at the gesture of Thomas, who was giggling and trying to pass it off as a joke. Even so, the reason why he couldn't help but notice Yu Jinho was because Laura, who was the first to come to Korea, knew the value of the brand Ajin Soft very quickly. Ajin Soft, a global company leading virtual reality games around the world. It is said that the hunter world and the game world are completely separate businesses, but from the point of view of companies, in the end, large companies were bound to be intertwined in some way. In particular, the fact that Ajin Soft is preparing a game featuring hunters named Only I Level Up was a great amount of high-quality information that was secretly spread among entrepreneurs. Recently, information has been released to the public little by little, but in fact, few people know that Ajin Soft started planning the project from the moment the cataclysm occurred. And as if proving that fact, CEO Jinho Yu had already been steadily buying stocks of large guilds around the world since then. As if predicting in advance that the share price of hunter guilds would skyrocket the moment a virtual reality game featuring real hunters was released. CEO Jinho Yu is truly a scary person, that they are making their own market and buying all related stocks before the market is created. That's not something anyone can do. Unlike Thomas Andre, who was only strong and immature, Laura was the one who knew the true face of CEO Jinho Yu more than anyone else, so I had no choice but to do my best in dealing with him. Anyway, thanks to that, the situation was resolved amicably, and Yu Jinho let out a sigh of relief. Whoa, I'll get it right away. But why did Mr. Thomas come to our Suho? I will explain it myself. When the atmosphere seemed to be getting better, Thomas smiled and looked at Suho. Sung Suho, we need your help. So suddenly, Suho looked at him with a genuinely shocked expression. Do you think someone who needs help will come and attack you like you're going to kill them? Is your brain full of muscles or even senility? However, there was a part where Suho was stabbed right away to be angry with him over this. Okay, at first I was going to drag it in moderation, but I never dreamed that it would be this difficult. I'm sorry anyway, I apologize. I apologized, so let go of your anger, man. I'm not saying anything because you killed our guild members. Hearing those words, Suho flinched and almost lost his expression. But on the outside, he maintained a shameless expression and responded to his words. I don't understand what you mean at all. What are you talking about now? Our Suho has lived only in Korea all his life. How can a guy who has never been abroad claim to have killed a scavenger guild member? Well done. Keep pushing. It was Beru who was cheering Yu Jinho hard in the shadows. Heh. Actually, that's a very strange part for me too. As if he knew it would come out like that, Thomas grinned and leaned back in his chair with a relaxed attitude. Of course there is no evidence, no witnesses. Not only the corpses of our guild members who went missing in the first place, but even the pyramids that they said they went in to attack has disappeared. CEO Jinho Yu, we don't have anything to argue for on this, so you can pretend you didn't hear. Laura, who was commenting next to me, raised her glasses and said, "But I heard that the Asura Guild hunters who survived and returned from the pyramid submitted strange reports." He said he became acquainted with a Korean figure called Hunter Sung Suho. "I knew it would be like this. Little lord, I must rip their mouths apart." Beru stood up from under the shadows in a huff. Suho stomped on the guy with his foot and talked casually. "I don't know who it is, but it seems to be the same person." "Of course it could be, but that is fine. After all, the guild members who went missing there were always a nuisance that caused a lot of trouble." "Okay, it doesn't matter where or by whom those idiots were beaten. Of course, if I were in my prime, I wouldn't let go of those who dared touch my property." Thomas rolled his eyes and gnashed his teeth, but he didn't spew out a life so hastily as before. Rather, he muttered in a low voice mixed with a sigh, with a bitter expression on his face, "Because I have much more important things to do now." Thomas looked into Suho's eyes and spoke in a serious tone. "Then I need you to help me." "What the hell are you asking for help with? I'm just a C-class hunter." At this point, Suho also became curious. What on earth is it that an American S-class hunter is asking for when he comes to him in Korea? It doesn't matter if you're C-class or E-class, because Norma Selner's prophecies have never been wrong. Norma Selner? Could it be that the prophet prophesied about Suho? The first to react to those words was Yu Jinho. He was the only one of these four who had memories of his past life, so he knew better than anyone how important Norma Selner's prophecy was. Okay, the old woman made a prophecy by picking out the Korean Sung Suho. Only this guy can help me. When he pointed out himself, Suho asked, "What kind of help do you mean?" "I don't know, because the grandmother's prophecy ended there, but my grandmother told me to tell you this. Glacier Dungeon. Maybe there you can find a clue about your mother." Suho and Yu Jinho, who suddenly heard words they couldn't even imagine, opened their eyes at the same time. Even Beru, who was eavesdropping from below, couldn't help but be astonished. "Kya! A clue about Hayin, little lord, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Be quiet for a moment. Organize your thoughts." Suho's mind suddenly felt like it was completely messed up. Does this make sense? The first words of an uninvited foreign guest who came from a completely unexpected place are the actions of a mother who disappeared a few years ago. Yu Jinho hurriedly looked at Suho. "Sung Suho, Norma Selner's prophecies are to be believed. You may not know, but she is. Even the small man knows. Once upon a time, my lord told me that old woman was a prophet who even answered a prophecy about a war between the Shadow Legion and the Lords. I don't know what a glacier dungeon is, but this is one we absolutely must go to." While Beru was rambling in the shadows like that, Thomas's secretary, Laura, was persuading Suho with a serious face. "I can vouch for Norma Selner's prophecy, as I heard it with him. He didn't say more details, but he said that if you help us, it will definitely help the Hunter Sung Suho in some way. I'll think about it for now." Suho managed to open his mouth while calming his complicated mind for a moment. In a response, Thomas chuckled and said, Yes, well thought out. I knew you would accept it." Thomas Sung Suho Hunter replied that he would think about it. Please study Korean more. That word is that word. It was Thomas who accepted Suho's answer as he pleased and laughed heartily. "Of course you're going?" After Thomas went back to the hotel, Beru was stomping his feet anxiously at Suho, who came home. No matter how much Hain Nim is blessed by his lord, in the end, she is just an ordinary human being. Even at this moment, just thinking about where and what kind of hardships Hain Nim is going through makes me so worried. Beru, clinging to Suho's shoulder, wept bitterly. Of course, he said he would think about it, but in fact, Suho's answer was fixed. "Of course I will go." It was the first clue about her mother found after several years of disappearance. Even if the prophecy was false, it was right to go and check it unconditionally. But the reason he was hesitant to answer now was another matter. Glacier Dungeon. The problem is that there is absolutely no information about where it is. I don't know where it was, but it was a dungeon that even an S-class hunter would have a hard time with. I was going to enter such a place, but I couldn't answer that I would go in without any information, especially if there is a mother's clue there. Judging by Thomas Andre's temper today, there was a very high probability that he would kidnap him on the spot and take him to the United States the moment he answered yes. It's obvious that I'm senile. It's because he's an old man who came to ask for help and started attacking without hesitation. Let's be careful and careful again. It wouldn't be strange if the old man came and kidnapped him, even tomorrow morning. Before that, it was urgent to find out information about the glacier dungeon as soon as possible. But the problem was that even Thomas Andre didn't have much information about it. In the first place, the Scavenger Guild itself was not a guild with good information for a large guild. The reason, ironically, was that next to Thomas, the guild leader was Mrs. Norma Sellner, a famous prophet. With an excellent prophet right next to him, his ability to collect information while working hard was gradually deteriorating. So after sending Thomas back to the hotel, Suho asked Yu Jinho to gather as much information as possible about the glacier dungeon, and he also began to track information using HunterNet and other means. If you're sure there's a mother's clue there, you can't make a mistake. I have to be fully prepared and go. That was then. Suho's phone rang. Anyway, my phone never gets a break. Perhaps, since Suho became a hunter, it was his cell phone that suffered more than anyone else. Is this a number you don't know? Suho looked at the number on the screen and made a puzzled expression. I suspected it was spam for a moment, but it could have been a call from Thomas or Laura, so I pressed the call button. Then, the voice that came from the other side was a completely different person. Hunter Sung Suho, I'm here. I'm Ryo Singh. Who was it? Suho covered his phone with his hand and looked at Beru. Chapter 112. Is this the country of Hunter Sung Suho? As he left the airport, Ryo Singh's face was convoluted. Ryo Singh, the raid leader of the Asura Guild. He was an Indian B-class hunter who fought the Scavenger Guild with Suho in Egypt. Although he came to Korea to meet Suho, the situation he was in was not good. I never thought I would be demoted, relegation. The vagueness of those two letters was heavy. Not long ago, he went to a dungeon in Egypt to build up his performance and came back with a solid taste of failure. The guild leader of the Asura Guild held all the responsibility for him, who barely managed to return with his life, far from achieving any significant results. In the process, Ryo Singh came to report everything he had experienced. The difficulty of the pyramid dungeon was much more dangerous than expected. The tyranny of the Scavenger Guild, which monopolized the place without permission. In particular, at this point, Ryo Singh repeatedly emphasized the story of the Korea's Hunter Sung Suho, who saved them in crisis. I couldn't help it. For Ryo Singh, it was because the relationship with Sung Suho was actually the only achievement he had achieved in the pyramid. Guild leader. He was a strong hunter, like an incarnation of Asura, and without him, the pyramid would have become our tomb. Asura's incarnation? That hunter was that strong? Talk about it in more detail. When the guild leader showed interest in Suho, Ryo Singh talked about Suho with more enthusiasm. After hearing the story, the guild leader rubbed his chin in interest and nodded. He is definitely an extraordinary person. It's definitely a good thing from the guild's point of view that you've been interacting with such a hunter. It was a good choice to make friends with him by giving him a dungeon item as a gift. Thank you, guild leader. Good. In that sense, I will give you a special mission. Ryo Singh, you should immediately go to Korea and recruit Hunter Sung Suho. Yes? Are you saying I'm going to be a scout myself? Then you should go yourself. Who is close to you? Go to Korea, ask how much he is paid in the guild he is currently in, and scout him for an appropriate ransom. Oh, and don't even think about coming back until you recruit him. At the guild leader's last words, Ryo Singh finally realized. Although the justification was claiming to be a scout, in fact, this was the guild leader's last consideration for himself. But I couldn't help but ask directly. Then, what will happen to my raid leader position in the meantime? It's not your part to get involved. It's cut. He had no choice but to accept reality. He tried to climb to a higher place by accumulating performance, but he even lost the position of raid leader. But it's still too early to give up. Despite this situation, Ryo Singh has not lost hope yet. The last hope left for you, because there was Sung Suho. As long as I recruit him, the guild leader will see me again. Because he had witnessed the battle of Sung Suho right in front of his eyes, he could be sure. The image of him wielding twin swords and slaughtering his enemies was truly the incarnation of Asura. He was a talent more suited to the Asura Guild than anyone else. If he joins the guild and shows great performance, I, who recruited him, will be promoted as well. Ryo Singh was confident. Before I came here, I was fully prepared to convince Suho. This is the way out. Ryo Singh's eyes were unusual as he skillfully read signs written in Korean. Only a week. That's how long it took me to master Korean perfectly. Even so, he was a well-known scholar in India until the cataclysm. There was nothing difficult about learning a new foreign language to a conversational level. Okay, I can do it. Let's think of this as a new opportunity, not a demotion. And this was a good thing for Hunter Sung Suho as well, because he also wants to expand into a wider world than this narrow country. Bell rang. The moment he turned on his phone outside the airport, messages from the guild began to arrive as if he had waited. I found out the contact information of Hunter Sung Suho. Contact is here. Heh, is it already? It's fast too. Ryo Singh's expression showed pride. After all, the information power of the Asura Guild is the best in India. Digging up the information of hunters in other countries was nothing, but that was then. Tring, tring, tring. Yes, after that? His eyes widened as he checked the contents of the urgent messages that arrived one after another. What is this? Information about Sung Suho was leaked to the Scavenger Guild. Emergency. Thomas Andre took a private plane and departed for Korea. Urgent. Thomas Andre arrives in Korea. Emergency. The Korean Hunter Association failed to stop Thomas Andres at the airport. Urgent. We are currently tracking Thomas Andres' movement through close cooperation with the Korea Association. Urgent. The prediction that Thomas Andre is visiting Sung Suho is certain. This is really a big deal. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Ryo Singh's complexion turned white. Even so, the Scavenger Guild was panicking recently when the guild members who went to Egypt did not come back. And as a result of the investigation, they found out that they entered the pyramid and disappeared from the earth together with the pyramid. If you look that far, the case would have just fallen into the labyrinth. I never thought information would leak from us. The scavengers, these bullies again. For a large guild, the scavenger lacked information. Ironically, the reason was that Thomas Andre, the guild leader, was close friends with the famous prophet Norma Selner. There was a magical prophet right next to him, so naturally, he had to go out on his own to find information. Then, when he needed information, he always used this method to extort information from other guilds. Whatever the case, things got out of hand. Considering Thomas Andre's personality, there was no way he would leave the people involved in the deaths of his guild members alone. Hunter Sung Suho is in danger. It was Ryo Singh who urgently contacted Suho. After some time, when he arrived at the area where Suho was, Ryo Singh was shocked. What the hell happened here? Had a storm swept through it, or did the earthquake happen only in this area? Sidewalk blocks that were horribly broken and smashed. Asphalt shredded and crushed like a spider's web. Ryo Singh couldn't keep his mouth shut at the surrounding scenery where everything he could see was half destroyed. And circumstantially, there was only one person who could do such a great thing. Thomas Andre. Thomas has already been looking for Sung Suho. Ryo Singh calmed his startled heart and scanned the surroundings thoroughly. After all, he is a specialist who started from the bottom of the harsh Asura Guild and was quickly promoted to the leader of the raid in just 2 years. With a keen eye, coupled with his own seasoned experience, he could deduce what kind of battle was taking place here with little visible information. Fire! I saw it. Ryo Singh's eyes were wide open, and an illusion of clashing fictional characters was drawn in front of him. Once one. Thomas Andre stood here and used a magic field. It was clearly visible in Ryo Singh's eyes. Thomas Andre. The figure of a gigantic silhouette unfolding a terrifying magic field centered on this place. And 2, the other party stands here and uses that magic field, startled. But something was strange. Wait a minute. After reading the situation, Ryo Singh got goosebumps. You got through this? Thomas's magic field? Even after washing my eyes again, it was clear. The opponent who was hit by Thomas Andre's magic field must have easily received the pressure. It seemed that he even had a power struggle with Thomas Andre inside the magic field. Looking at the traces left on the half-destroyed land, it was clear. The problem is the outcome of the match. My God. Ryo Singh was astonished. Is this possible? Is it equal to that Thomas Andre, the strongest hunter of mankind? How could this happen? There was no sign of using any other skill, so it must have been a clash of pure power and power. Even so, this makes no sense. No. It makes sense. Realizing the tremendous truth, Ryo Singh trembled on the spot, as if he had been struck by lightning. That's right. At that time, he was holding back his power because he was afraid the pyramid would collapse. Looking back, at that time, Suho leisurely left to hunt the giant centipede that had entered the pyramid. Although he discouraged him, saying that he was obviously dangerous, you really had the confidence to hunt that centipede. Oh my God. In the end, only Ryo Singh realized the whole truth. He no longer felt sad about being demoted. Information is power. Unwillingly, he had learned the advanced information that Sung Suho was a Goliath level before anyone else. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I have to recruit Hunter Sung Suho at all costs. Sung Suho finally appeared in front of him, who was so determined. However, even after clashing with Thomas Andre, Ryo Singh couldn't help but be astonished at his appearance, which was so fine. Ryo Singh? Hunter Sung Suho, namaste. Finally, Singh realized that the moment had come to demonstrate his mastery of the Korean language. Now is the time to let your splendid speech skills shine. First of all, an apology. After that, we'll make a scouting offer to protect you from Thomas Andre. A truly perfect scenario. He desperately apologized to Suho with an extremely sincere look. Sung Suho, I'm sorry. It's because of Thomas Andre. It's okay? Thomas is scary. Sign up, Asura Guild. What are you talking about again? It seems to be a new type of voice phishing master. Asura Guild, join. Suho was just devastated. Do I really have to move? Following Thomas Andre, the second foreigner came to visit today, and neither of them were sane. At this point, my personal information seems to be a real public good. How did you find out the alternate phone number? How did you know the address? Heck, even recently, even the Hunmu Guild, which is only known in Korea, came to visit his house, so I wonder if anyone can't. However, apart from Suho's dejection, this moment was the most serious for Ryo Singh throughout his entire life. He explained in detail what had happened to Suho. I told the guild leader, Sung Suho is a strong hunter. Between our friendship, it was an explanation I did my best without needing to summarize. Kiek, did I say we were friends now? Beru, who had been holding on to him, burst out of the rage he had been holding back and jumped out of the shadows. A traitor who dared to sell out the little lord, come here shamelessly? A worm that would not be happy even if it was divided into 5 parts for this crime of treason. But what does it mean? I don't know difficult words. Easy. When Ryo Singh tilted his head with a puzzled expression, Beru's vitality shook. Then I chose the word juicium. Tearing the limbs for treason. Tilting. It's hard. Easy. Pull off the arms and legs from the torso and tear off the hair. Tilt. Easier and easier. Oh yeah, you really can't speak Korean, you bastard. Beru eventually snarled in his face with clear intent to kill. You bad, human. Right, I'm bad, namaste. In his serious eyes, leaning and joining both hands, Beru turned his head to Suho. Little lord, can I chew and eat this human brain? No, more than that. Indeed, Suho suddenly smiled kindly and looked at Ryo Singh. Ryo Singh, Thomas Andre is here to kill me. Did you know? I know, I'm very sorry. Only in words? Huh? Are you sorry for just words? Suho was smiling brightly. Chapter 113, Chapter 112, Suho thought. It just went well. The Asura Guild that Ryo Singh belonged to was one of the most popular guilds in India. If it was the Asura Guild, it might have known information that the Scavenger Guild didn't know. I need information. Information? What information? Information about dungeons. Suho asked Ryo Singh, who was watching him with a nervous expression. Do you know about the Glacier Dungeon? Glacier? What's that? It must have been a difficult word for Ryo Singh. Ryo Singh quickly turned on the translator to find out the meaning, and his expression brightened. Ah, Glacier Dungeon. I know where that is. You know? Really? Suho's eyes widened. I've been asking, but I'm sure you know. Beru was also surprised and grabbed Ryo Singh by the collar and yelled at him. Even though those two arms were finger-thick, their momentum was brutal. "You better be telling the truth. If you're lying, I will tear you limb from limb. KKK, I really do know where it is. Asura Guild. Asura has a lot of information." It was Ryo Singh, who, even in the midst of embarrassment, was well informed about promoting the guild. It was not an exaggeration. The Asura Guild has got quite good information. In the first place, the Scavenger Guild was only weak in information compared to its size. It was normal for most guilds to make an effort to build their own database by buying and selling each other's information. And the Scavenger was also planning to change its policy to further strengthen its information power with this incident as an opportunity. At the unexpected income, Suho said that he was doing well and his eyes lit up. "You said you knew where it is, right? So can you tell me everything you know about the Glacier Dungeon? And don't leave a single detail behind." "Yes, why are you going there?" "I decided to enter that dungeon sooner or later with Thomas Andre." "What?" At those words, Ryo Singh trembled as if struck by lightning. "What did I hear just now? Where are you going with Thomas Andre? In Glacier Dungeon? No, it's very dangerous. Everyone who has gone there has died. I have to go even if it is dangerous. My mother might be in that dungeon." Flinch. Ryo Singh's expression hardened at Suho's determined words. Why is your mother there?" "Anyway, yes. It's not exactly my mother, but my mother's clue." Suho explained it in a condensed way so that he could understand it as much as possible, and unintentionally, the words were more persuasive. Ryo Singh shook his head with a serious expression. It was difficult to judge the situation because there was so much information coming in at once. Sung Suho's mother is in the Glacier Dungeon. It is a dungeon known only to a small number of guilds, and yet it seems that the preliminary research on Sungsu Lake was insufficient. I never thought Sung Suho's mother was also a hunter. Is that a level hunter to enter the Glacier Dungeon? No, more important than that. The problem was the name Thomas Andre that came out of Suho's mouth. Why is Suho going to enter the dungeon with Thomas Andre? For a moment, could it be that the purpose of his visit to Sung Suho was not for revenge, but for recruiting? I suddenly woke up. Feeling giddy, Ryo Singh hurriedly turned his gaze around to see the devastated landscape around him. Looking back at the traces that Suho and Thomas Andre created while clashing, it was impressive, and I realized, now I know. If Thomas Andre had put all his strength into it, it couldn't have ended just like this. The interview was held here. It was a test of Song Suho's strength. What kind of interview is so lousy? That was understandable enough when I recalled Thomas Andre's usual personality. Feeling like he was cut in the line by a hair's breadth, Ryo Singh felt desperate. Couldn't you have already signed a contract? It doesn't seem like it, if you look closely. He swallowed dry saliva and asked Suho directly. Has Sung Suho joined the Scav, Anger Guild? No. Why? No? Ryo Singh's expression suddenly brightened, and with a determined expression, he banged his chest. I know. I'll tell you about the Glacier Dungeon. Suho's eyes widened at the difficult answer. Done. I was lucky. Information about dungeons is more precious than 1,000 gold. In particular, information on places that are still unknown, such as the Glacier Dungeon, is difficult to convert. Even from Ryo Singh's point of view, it was a sensitive matter that could directly or indirectly cause economic damage to the guild if leaked. But now wasn't the time for Ryo Singh to slow down. We can't have this kind of talent stolen from another guild right in front of our eyes. He quickly checked to see if there were any other hearing ears around. Confidently, he started listing the information he knew to Suho one by one. It is very cold there. Breathing, eating, sleeping, walking are all dangerous. It's a glacier, so it's natural. Anything else? It is really very cold. It's too cold, so the action slows down. Debuff area. Debuff area. Small Lord, it seems that the place is cursed with slowness in a wide range. This information was so important that even Beru intervened. It's not simply a matter of the weather, but a dungeon with a curse that has a direct adverse effect during battle. But it doesn't matter to me. Fortunately, Suho was immune to all curses thanks to Kandiaru's blessing. However, this was only a blessing for the guardian individual and would be a definite risk factor for other hunters who would move together as a group. Okay, anything else? When Suho nodded and asked again, Ryo-sing hesitated for a moment, because this is really important information. This is a secret. Promise? Huh. Promise. What are you so lazy about? There are ice elves in the glacier dungeon, a lot of them. What? Ice elf? A strangeness appeared in Suho's eyes. If you were an ice elf, it was a rare beast that was rarely seen in dungeons. However, the information Ryo-sing gave me was very different from the ice elves' habits listed on HunterNet. Don't ice elves usually go in pairs, and don't they use bows from a distance? Right. However, the ice elves in the glacier dungeon are different. In response to Suho's question, Ryo-sing spoke clearly, using a translator to avoid any misunderstanding. There is a tribe of ice elves living there, at least hundreds of known numbers. Hundreds? This was the advanced information the Asura Guild had. Glacier Dungeon is the country of ice elves. Meanwhile, even at this moment, the hunters who recklessly set foot in the Glacier Dungeon were being pursued helplessly. Pure white snow. Shush, 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 shush. Arrows rained down on the cold wind that would freeze even your breath. The arrows pouring down from all directions were relentlessly aiming for their lives. Puppy pew. Keep. My leg. Dozens of arrows were stuck in their backs and legs as they fled. However, the expressions of the hunters crawling on the floor, saying that they would try to survive somehow, were full of desperation. Hey, those tenacious bustards! They intend to kill us by drying us out. There was no hope here anymore. Never thought that they, who were hunters, would fall into a miserable prey. And there were hundreds of hunters who were indifferently looking down at them from a high place in despair. Ice Elf. They aimed their bows at the strangers who invaded this land with cold eyes. Hundreds of bows. A rain of arrows pouring down from there. Nonsense! Ice Elves swarm. If I had known this place was like this, I would never have entered. The Ice Elves known to the public were relatively docile monsters that were found with very rare probability. They always had a habit of sticking together, always carrying a crude bow and arrow made of wood in their hands. Strangely, however, they were so-called non-professional mobs who never attacked until someone approached them first. Even the moment the hunters attack the dungeon and the gate closes, they just silently hid themselves in the depths of a faraway dungeon and watched the hunters quietly. That's why the nickname given to them was the Watcher, the one who watches. However, the hunters who rushed to hunt them, even once, never called them by that name, Ice Elf. They thought they were docile, but the moment someone turned them against them, he turned into a brutal marksman who hunted enemies with unusual movements. Contrary to their beautiful appearance, they are actually very cruel and warlike ice elves. So another nickname was born, Baikwi. It meant an elusive white ghost. However, despite this, Baikwi still belonged to a safe beast. Their archery skills were excellent, but at most they traveled in pairs, so their numbers weren't threatening. Most of all, because it was a non-linear mob. But that information has now lost its value, at least here in the Glacier Dungeon, a land where hundreds of sharpshooters live together. Even if you knew this information in advance and prepared for it, would you have survived safely? Do not come, don't come. A man hurriedly crawling across the floor with arrows stuck in his legs and back. Turbuk. A cold shadow fell over his face, pale with fear. You are the last. The man looked up in fear at the ice elf who approached and spoke to him. Because he had already shed too much blood, he could barely see his opponent through his blurry vision. Silver eyes with gray hair and fair skin and pointy ears. By human standards, she was a small and young girl who looked only about 10 years old. You stranger who invaded our land. I am Shurka, the guardian of the Baruka tribe. An ice elf girl wearing a furry cap proudly introduced herself with cold eyes like frost. But even after hearing that, there was no response from the man. It was natural, because there was no way humans could understand the demon's language. However, Shurka continued her words as if it was okay. I will ask only one question. If you want to live, you will have to answer well. Shurka took a short deep breath and asked him a question clearly. Do you know the Shadow Lord? What the hell are you talking about? Seeing the girl speaking to him in an unknown language, the dying man cried out in anger. I ask you one last time, do you know Sung Jinwoo? Just fucking kill me! Kill me! If you don't know, die! Chew. Chapter 114, Chapter 113, the next day. As soon as the day dawned, Suho headed for Uljiro. Thanks to Ryo Singh, now that I knew the enemies I had to deal with, it was time to prepare accordingly. Hundreds of archers. Of course, I didn't think this information was unconditionally certain. Perhaps there were more unrevealed ice elves, so we had to assume the possibility that they were much more numerous than that. Besides, just in time, he had a money line to hope that Suho would not die. Our guild leader has a lot of money. I will buy you a guardian item. Just Ryo Singh. On a business trip to scout Suho, he had a corporate business card given to him by the Asura Guild. He was willing to swipe his credit card anyway to pay off his debt to Thomas Andre and to buy Suho's favor. But Beru grabbed Ryo Singh by the collar and growled ferociously. Don't boast about the price you deserve. The crime of putting the little lord in danger will disappear. Kekik, hard to say, easy, I'll use it well. Beru quickly took his corporate card and presented it to Suho. Kang! Upon arriving at Uljiro, noises from all directions awaited them. Once in Uljiro, I used to hear these words like a running joke. Everything is sold in Uljiro except people. A store where you can find anything you need. A special area lined with special workshops with a lot of specialized equipment. That place was Uljiro. It was only after the cataclysm that Uljiro began to become more famous in earnest. Eventually, the moment they came out of the narrow alley, fire, sucked into an open field of vision, a tremendous sight unfolded before them. This is how Uljiro adapted to this era of upheaval. Hunter-exclusive survival kit, shield special processing, sword and axe blade sharpening, plate armor workshop, making processing blunt weapon castings, a rare scene with various signboards. Hunter goods were displayed in front of them. There would be no hunter who would not roll his eyes even after seeing this. Iced coffee? Is this Korea's Hunter Mall? So did Ryo Singh. Of course, there are places like this in India as well, but new weapons are waiting for new weapons dealers. In addition, it was quite unusual for him to see arms dealers concentrated in one area like Korea. Guardian, steering here too. Item shop, blacksmith. In fact, regardless of nationality or grade, if you are a hunter, you have no choice but to become an equipment enthusiast. It was because normal hunters couldn't level up like Suho, so there was no way to become stronger. First of all, since the amount of magic power is a fixed value, the only effort they can make is to increase their physical strength. In other words, physical training through rigorous training such as gym or sports. Or it was just to develop proficiency in using their skills in various ways based on their numerous practical experiences. However, there was one sure way to grow up that could easily ignore all those hardships. Right temp. A stronger weapon, more durable armor. If you change the equipment you use to something slightly better, you can become just as strong. So, it was only natural for hunters to change their equipment. Are you here now? In front of blacksmith in Uljiro, there was a person who arrived first and was waiting for Suho. The middle-aged man, who was leaning his back against the wall with his arms crossed, looked at Suho and made a disapproving expression. You're probably the first person to call me out to recommend some usable items. Suho was absurd. No, uncle. Why did I call him uncle? I just asked for a recommendation for a weapons store, you know. You insisted on coming out and showing me yourself. Oldly, you have to touch and pick a weapon yourself. What if I texted you tick for no reason and you get caught somewhere? Are you going to spread rumors that the guild leader you bought at that time was not good at paying attention? Oh, I hope I do. Ryo Singh, who was listening to their conversation from the side, realized the man's true identity and trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. Oh my God, I wonder where I've seen it. Isn't it Lim Tae-gyu, an S-class hunter? Did this person know Hunter Sung Suho? While on a business trip, Ryo Singh had already familiarized himself with the information about hunters in Korea. Of course, I knew someone like Lim Tae-gyu. Now I see that Scavenger wasn't the only competitor. Of course, I had no idea that large guilds in Korea would also covet Sung Suho. He looked at Suho's intentions with a nervous expression. So Suho, want to join the Reaper Guild? No. Ryo Singh's face lit up again. But it was still too early to let go. Who is this guy again? A new friend? Yes, I am an Ashura Guild hunter. Ah, was it an Indian hunter? At that moment, indifferent Lim Taeju's gaze and Ryo Singh's eyes collided in the air, and Ryo Singh suddenly noticed the fact that Lim Taeju's expression towards Suho is full of regret. I can't do it. I need to contact the guild leader and ask for a higher limit on the corporate card. Sung Suho could have been taken away right in front of me if I was pushed back here. Moreover, right in front of his eyes, a conversation was going on that justified Ryo Singh's anxiety. Anyway, thank you very much for coming in person. You must be busy, but please make time for me. The guy who kept chewing on the contact of that busy person until now speaks well. Oh, I'm really sorry about that. There are so many guild sign-up messages these days, so I haven't read them all. What happened? You say you're building your career to set up a separate guild anyway? How did you know? Somehow I found out about it. Originally, this floor was narrow. It was Lim Taeju, who quietly changed his words with a shy expression. Because of the Vice President Lee Min-sung's case, the Reaper Guild was not making sense these days. It was also a problem that his image plummeted in one shot, but he was also experiencing financial difficulties. He ran out of money to give away the death consolation money for the hunters who died at the time of the incident to the bereaved families by robbing Lim Taeju of his personal expenses. He did everything he could, but that doesn't mean that his image once lost could not be easily restored. So I tried to recruit this guy somehow. In a situation where many hunters are lost and manpower is urgently needed, it is natural to miss one talented person like Suho. However, there was no way to bring in a guy who said he would set up a guild himself. Besides, Lim Taeju, who stared at Suho's face for a while with a complicated gaze, opened his mouth. Anyway, what are you going to buy today? A bow. You are the best expert on bows in Korea. That is normal. Bow? Ryo Singh was greatly taken aback by the conversation between the two. This is crazy, to use the same bow as a countermeasure against hundreds of ice elves. The strategy is terribly wrong. Naturally, Ryo Singh, who thought Suho had come to buy armor and shields, panicked and stopped him. Guardian, there are so many ice elves, full plate mail. I recommend a tower shield. There are a lot of ice elves? Lim Taeju's eyebrows twitched as he heard Ryo Singh's words. Then, he quickly turned serious and glared at Suho. Just a moment. Are you thinking of entering the Glacier Dungeon right now? Do you know about the Glacier Dungeon? Who do you think I am? Do you think I, Lim Taeju, don't even know that much information? At Suho's reaction, Lim Taeju sighed heavily and gnashed his teeth. No matter how bad things got, the Reaper Guild was considered the best guild in Korea until recently. That much information was, of course, well known. No, wait, then why did Thomas Andre come yesterday? It was only a small piece of information, but it was Lim Taeju who noticed a lot with that alone. Recently, rumors were circulating in the cave industry that scavengers were aiming for glacier dungeons. He looked at Suho with a strange expression. Were you acquainted with Thomas Andre? No. I just met him yesterday. What the hell? No, if you don't know anything else, don't ever go in as a scavenger. They are ignorant. I'm not going in. Somehow, we only ended up entering the dungeon together this once. Good luck then. But why are you buying a bow when you're going to the Glacier Dungeon? Against hundreds of archers, of course you would need large and sturdy armor, right? That's right. Armor, shield, buy a tower shield. Even Ryo Singh joined in to try to change Suho's heart. However, Suho's mind was already set. The defense was already sufficient. Even without a shield, there were plenty of ways to block the arrows. And above all, of course, it's more about attack than defense. Rather than standing still and blocking an attack, it suited his temper to attack first. However, Lim Taeju and Ryo Singh, who did not know Suho's intentions, continued to nag while following Suho as he entered the bow shop. Okay, aside from the shield, why is it a bow? You're a swordsman. It's not like the Scavenger Guild doesn't have archers. That's right. Suho originally uses dual swords. Asura. Yes, Suho. I'm sure you're mistaken, but a bow is by no means an easy weapon to handle, you know? Lim Taeju, who is acknowledged to be the best archer in Korea, could not allow a newcomer like Suho to take the bow lightly. Anyway, everyone is mistaken for the image of an archer because of the games that have come out these days, but in fact, There is no occupation that requires as much strength as an archer. The higher the attack power, the bigger and heavier the bow, so pulling the bowstring. Huh? The reason why Lim Tae-gyu's nagging, which seemed to last forever, suddenly stopped. It was because Suho just picked up the biggest and heaviest bow in the store. Waha, Suho was so light that he was pulling a bow demonstration. Mister, can you see if this is a good bow? Why are you looking at me like that? When Suho's eyes met, Lim Tae-gyu cleared his throat with an embarrassed expression. Hey, the power is good. By the way, you were a Class C mana power, right? Are you sure it's C class? Lim Tae-gyu, who recalled Suho's battle he had witnessed, looked at Suho with a slightly suspicious expression. Did you get a remeasurement after that? No, even if it's roughly grade B. Do you have archery skills in the first place? I don't have one. What? No? If you don't have archer skills, your mana will run out quickly after just a few shots, right? Lim Tae-gyu touched his forehead, realizing how much Suho was a rookie hunter. If he forcibly condensed mana to create an arrow without an archer skill, the efficiency of mana per arrow was too poor. Compared to normal archer hunters, it consumes 3 to 10 times more magic power. Suho shrugged at his question. Everything has a way. It was then. As he spoke, Suho's complexion hardened terribly. A huge wave of magical energy spread throughout the area. At that moment, all the hunters in the store opened their eyes almost simultaneously and turned their eyes in the same direction. A tremendous energy was felt far beyond that direction. It's a dungeon break. It's around here. Urgent voices erupted from the mouths of the hunters in Uljiro, no matter who said it first. But there was nothing to worry about. This is Uljiro. Maybe it was the place where the most hunters gathered in Korea. Whoever catches this first is the owner. The hunters all put down the things they were going to buy and started running to the place where they felt the dungeon break, in the middle of the mess. Lim Tae-gyu was looking at Suho standing next to him with a strange expression. Is it an illusion? When everyone looked at the place where the energy wave was felt at the same time, there was a person who turned his head first than anyone else. I think this guy was the fastest, maybe even more than myself. Chapter 115, Chapter 114. An archer is a job that requires you to be more sensitive than anyone else. Feeling the opponent's presence and predicting the next move is the basic of the basics. Even more so, he had to calculate the direction of the wind and let go of the bowstring. In that sense, Lim Tae-gyu was proud of his senses. To be sure, he was confident that he would be the best in the world in terms of the sense of presence. So there was nothing more absurd. Do you have better senses than me? No way. No matter how much I knew that Suho was a very talented person, this was also nonsense. It must be because of my mood, but it wasn't my mood. In fact, Suho felt the signs faster than anyone else here, and he had no choice but to do so. An urgent quest has arrived. The quest has arrived right in front of you. Urgent quest. Swamp. A dungeon break has occurred near the player. Solve the demons of the swamp that pollute the city and earn rewards. They're the magic beasts of the swamp. Apparently, the demonic beasts that protruded were on the beast's side. The sense of guardianship that calmly checks the quest is already an instinct itself. It had become a predator that had found its prey in the wild. The title, Wolf Slayer Buff Effect, is activated. The title effect popped out on its own before I even realized it. The smell of beasts mixed with the magic wave of the dungeon break was vibrating everywhere. Let's go too. Where are you going? Where is it? The dungeon break has exploded. Didn't you see the number of people who just came? They will figure it out. Even at Suho's words that ignited his fighting spirit, Lim Tae-gyu only shrugged his shoulders. Probably, if it was this much of a commotion, all the hunters who were shopping in Uljiro would have run. No matter how much natural disasters belong to the dungeon break, there shouldn't be a big problem with that many people. In addition, there was also the issue of commercial morality. If you don't know yet, it's polite for an S-class hunter like me to leave the kids out. Besides, we didn't even carry weapons anyway. Huh? Are you really going? Suho was running out of the distance holding the bow he was already holding. Embarrassed, Lim Tae-gyu shouted after him. Hey man, the bow you're holding now is a lot more expensive than I thought. It's okay. I will buy it for you. At that time, it was Ryo Singh who suddenly took out a corporate card from the side. After quickly paying for the bow Suho carried, Lim Taegyu put on a puzzled expression when he saw Ryo Singh following Suho. Are you a hog or a water owner? It's okay. Our guild leader has a lot of money. Guardian Asura Chinguda. What the? If we lose him to India like this, it will be difficult as it is. Lim Taegyu grumbles with a puzzled expression. It was not uncommon these days for useful Korean hunters to be taken away from other countries in exchange for large sums of money. From a long-term perspective, this will lead to a weakening of national defense. Go with me, you bastards! Taegyu brushed off the old-fashioned thoughts that continued in his head and quickly caught up with Suho in an instant. And as if it had nothing to do with it, he reached out his hand toward the bow holding Suho. How many rounds can you fire with your magical power anyway? All right, pass that bow. I will especially show you what a real archer is like. What are you doing? I don't know how many times his nagging has stopped halfway through. After coming out of the store, Suho was aiming his bow at the sky. It was the direction where the dungeon break was felt, but it was covered by buildings, so nothing could be seen from here. Lim Taegyu asked Suho with a puzzled expression. I can't even see it from here, but what are you doing now? It was then. The reason why Suho's eyes flashed toward invisible enemies. Spring up, Quay. Shuwook, at that moment, a pointed spear of black energy rose from within Suho's shadow. Transformation. Arrow. In an instant, Lim Taegyu's eyes were colored with astonishment. Magic arrow? Is something different? Something is wrong. Even if it's wrong, it's firmly wrong. Just at the moment Suho created the arrow, there was no feeling of mana being compressed in the process. Generate arrows without consuming mana? No, that can't be possible when he gets confused glance. Quay's gaze, which had turned into a shadow arrow, briefly passed Lim Taegyu's face. Lim Taegyu, a love-hate relationship that was once friends. But now, as if it were all good, Suho pulled out Quay, who turned his gaze forward again and held the bowstring. A terribly hideous energy flowed from the swollen shoulder muscles and arms. Quay, yes, master. Fly and pierce, as directed. Way! As soon as he let go of the protest, Quay immediately became a single black bolt of lightning and soared into the sky, towards the invisible enemy beyond. And about 30 minutes ago, an ominous disaster was happening near Suho's house. Suho, you cute baby. Thomas Andre, who returned to Suho's house after a day, was smiling with a bloody expression. Suho was not at home. Even when he zoomed in, he couldn't feel his aura anywhere nearby. How pathetic. Did he get scared and run away even though his mother was caught? Kugu. The ground shook as if toppling from his anger. However, his secretary Laura, who was next to him, was not taken aback and just looked around indifferently. Yesterday was a bit embarrassing, but she was already used to the antics of the old man, who is said to be the strongest of mankind. Anyway, as I got older, my temper only got worse. Laura immediately calmed him down. Look, Thomas, he didn't run away. See the note here. Only then did Thomas Andre notice the small note attached to the door and raise his eyes. I'm going out for a while. Outing? Not running away? After checking the note, Thomas's anger faded in an instant. Yes, come to think of it, I only gave a business card to CEO Yu yesterday and didn't leave a contact information for Hunter Sung Suho, so I guess he left a note. Ah, that's right. So where did he go? I'll find out right away. Despite Thomas Andre's sudden request, Laura didn't panic and turned her gaze behind her back. Did you say you were the team leader Han Jae-hyuk? Yes. At the sudden question, a tall man awkwardly walked out from behind the alley. It was Han Jae-hyuk, the team leader of the Hunter Association. Do you know where Hunter Sung Suho went out to? Yes, I figured it out in advance. You are competent. I heard that the Korean Hunter Association is quite amazing. Thank you. What thanks? I was telling the truth. In spite of Thomas Andre's praise, who was in a good mood, team leader Han Jae-hyuk could not relax. It feels like dealing with a time bomb that doesn't know when it will explode. Since Thomas Andre arrived in Korea yesterday, the Hunters Association have been circling him. Thomas Andre is literally a walking bomb. I couldn't take my eyes off him for a moment, not knowing what he would do in Korea. Even when they clashed with Suho here yesterday, they were watching the two from afar. Fortunately, Thomas didn't seem to be doing his best, so he just watched. They didn't know how nervous they were because they had planned to jump out all at once and stop Thomas. Okay, why did this happen when the president of the association was away? Team leader Han Jae-hyuk sighed, blaming the president of the association for helping North Korea just at the right time, only 2 years after the cataclysm. Although the association is working hard, the Hunter Act is still weak and has many loopholes. Experts put forward the view that at least 5 more years will be needed for the Hunter Act to be properly established. In any case, physical time is required because of the procedures required for new laws to be enacted. Given the circumstances, it was common for savage gangsters like Thomas Andre to lightly ignore trivial laws. However, he could not be accused and put in prison. Rather, it was thanks to humanity that he did not walk the path of a villain and quietly acted as a hunter. So, Mr. Han, where did this little boy go after cheating on me? They say they are in Uljiro right now. Fortunately, Thomas Andre didn't seem to be hostile to Sung Suho, so team leader Han Jae-hyuk answered meekly. Uljiro? What kind of town is it to be going there? Uljiro is a special area that sells hunter-specialized equipment. Oh, the arms dealer? Look at this wonderful guy. Thomas Andre immediately felt better and grinned. What did it mean when he said he went to buy weapons when wondered where he was going so early in the morning? Laura nodded. I guess he made up my mind last night to come with us. Catch a taxi, Laura. Does that kid have eyes for weapons? Of course I have to choose. Ah, finally, Han Jae-hyuk, the team leader, felt dizzy. In an area where a lot of hunters are already gathering, the strongest old man of mankind has appeared. He sighed and said, looking as if he had aged 10 years. You'd rather move with us. I have prepared a big tea for you. It is. Can we go this way? Thomas Andre walks out as if he knew it would happen. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk sighed once again at the villainous expression on his lips and guided him to the car. There is no real tyrant, but he didn't know. The fact that the appearance he has shown so far has been a real joke. Thomas Andre was traveling to Uljiro in a car prepared by the association. Dukung. In the middle of downtown Uljiro, a tremendous energy wave suddenly burst out. It's a dungeon break. At that moment, the association hunters instinctively prepared for battle. Among them, the only one who is relaxed. What did you prepare for this event? Thomas Andre raises his body with an expression as if he has found some interesting entertainment. As soon as he opened the car door and came out, Uljiro was already in trouble. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk quickly grasped the situation and ordered everyone. Situation happens. Situation happens. A swampy area has arisen in the middle of the city. The type of monster is Kia! At that moment, the vicious monsters had already risen from the swamp and attacked them. It was then, in force. Thomas raised one corner of his mouth and swung his big fist and struck the beast's torso. Bang! The beast's body, half of which had disappeared, landed in a distant place. The eyes of the association hunters were stained with astonishment at that tremendous sight. Oops, did I hit too hard? Behind Thomas, who was scratching the back of his head, a number of hunters rushed out of Uljiro and started a full-fledged battle with the beasts. Did I tell you last time? Thomas smiled as if he was having fun and spoke leisurely to team leader Han Jae-hyuk. I've never let anyone who stands in my way live. As he said that, Thomas's stern eyes turned to the biggest of the beasts. Is that guy a boss mob? It's a huge snake that lives in the swamp. A huge snake the size of a log was coiled in the middle of the swamp. Blue venom was dripping from the frightening fangs in its wicked mouth. Sigh. Good. Listen, that guy is my prey. Anyone who dares touch mine. It was the moment when Thomas Andre was approaching the boss mob, making a confident declaration with the most ferocious momentum. Wee-ay! Just in time, a black arrow from the sky pierced the boss mob like lightning. Ka! What insolent bastard dares? Thomas, whose prey was stolen right in front of his eyes, roared with a ferocious expression. Chapter 116, Chapter 115. The atmosphere at the moment when the dungeon break had just occurred was, in one word, Junggu heating. Hunters and soldiers who felt the wave of magic were gathering every moment, but since they were strangers, it was impossible to get a system in place. Rather, it was accurate to see them as competitors at this time. Hey, this is our mob. Don't touch it. What? Whoever catches it first wins. If this was a normal dungeon, there wouldn't be any ownership disputes. The order of attack will be decided, and the proportion of the loot will be determined through an accurate contract. But now, this place hadn't even become a field dungeon yet, and it was just treated as a natural disaster. In this case, whoever catches it first should be the winner. In other words, it is first come, first served. That's why the hunters were scattered all over the place and were moving to catch even one more beast. And that greed caused the problem. But why don't these guys die like this? Shit! All of these venomous snakes have their bodies covered in ironclad scales. In the swampy area in the middle of the city, ironclad vipers were crawling. The level of each of the magic beasts was not very high, but there were too many of them, and above all, they were hiding deadly weapons. Poison teeth. The venom of ironclad venomous snakes was strong enough to make even quite a few hunters unable to control themselves with just one bite. Ah! Fuck! I was bitten. Does anyone have a healer with detoxification skills? Now is not the time to compete with each other. If you don't clear it quickly, a field-type dungeon will appear. That's right, let's join forces. As casualties continued to rise here and there, the alert hunters began to join forces one by one. In fact, the most important thing during the dungeon break was to wipe out the monsters as quickly as possible. As the blue mist permeated the bodies of the monsters who crossed the gate, the contaminated area gradually expanded as they spread in all directions. The result was the so-called field dungeon. And then, bang! The S-class hunter tyrant Thomas Andre, who appeared like a savior in this chaotic place, exploded a monster. Only then did the hunters here realize Thomas Andre's intrusion one by one and opened their eyes wide. The Goliath? Why is that person here? I heard that you came to Korea yesterday, but I never imagined that you would suddenly meet in a place like this. However, the hunters were relieved by his appearance. It was because everyone knew that to Thomas Andre, monsters of this level were nothing. However, on the other hand, the signs of concern could not be completely erased. Mr. Thomas Andre, beware. Snake venom runs throughout this swamp. Someone yelled out loud to give him information, just to impress him. If you touch this swamp, your muscles will be damaged and your strength will be weakened. I have the decryption skill, so I will assist you. The person who shouted was a healer with detoxification skills. If you use this opportunity to help Thomas Andre, a world-class hunter, you might be famous or receive a great reward. But perhaps not hearing his cry, Thomas Andre walked into the swamp without hesitation. The snake venom flowing through it seeped into his body and weakened his strength. But this was no problem to him. Listen, that guy is my prey, the one who dares touch mine. At the center of the snake venom, it was the moment when Thomas Andre made a declaration by pointing to the largest venomous snake that appeared to be a boss mob. Wedge A! Just in time, a black lightning bolt from the sky pierced the boss mob. Ka! The largest venomous snake in the center of the swamp was pierced by a black arrow and collapsed with a terrible scream. What insolent bastard dares? Seeing the scene, Thomas Andre roared fiercely and raised his head. Others were astonished at the sight. No matter how much he caught at first, he was the owner, but he couldn't imagine who the archer was, who stole the prey announced by Thomas Andre first. Let's see how much of a coward he's lost. Bang! Thomas Andre, who was in the middle of the swamp, immediately kicked off the ground and jumped high. Black magic arrows flew in a parabolic arc from the sky, and you should be able to spot them if you look for them from high up. Thomas Andre climbed to the roof of a nearby high-rise building with a single leap. I followed the direction in which the black arrow flew and ran over the buildings. Thud. The moment I climbed the tallest building in Uljiro like that. He ran into the image of Suho, who had just jumped up to find the tallest building over there. There were two other people beside him, but they didn't even come into Thomas's line of sight. Shape transformation. Arrow Pajik. Heavy and destructive energy was condensed in the bow of the guard, which was aimed at the swamp. Number of shadows that can be stored. Suho, who was able to store 2 more shadow soldiers through leveling up in the demon realm, filled the empty slots with the two strongest minotaurs. Go and stir Mino. Suho set the bowstring toward the swamp. The arrows, whose arrowheads looked like cow heads, flew like cannonballs from siege engines. Wow, you have killed Blue Fangtooth Kasaka. You have killed Blue Fangtooth Kasaka. You have killed Blue Fangtooth Kasaka. Countless messages appeared one after another. However, there was no level-up message that I had been waiting for. It was only a problem because the uniqueness of swamps and poison made combat difficult. It was because the magic beasts themselves were absurdly weak compared to the ones Suho had been dealing with. Now these guys couldn't even give Suho experience. You have killed Kasaka, the ruler of the swamp. This boss mob I first killed by shooting Quay. Even when I killed this guy, I didn't level up, so I said it all. However, Suho was satisfied enough. I only told you to solve the dungeon break because I didn't tell you to catch it all by yourself. The dungeon break began to be settled at a rapid pace, just by Suho arranging the boss mob and some monsters. He had only shot 2 arrows, but the quest was progressing quickly on its own, thanks to the activities of others. Like the difficulty, this quest seemed to be lucky in many ways. Bell ring. You have completed Emergency Quest Swampland. A message arrived just in time. Thanks to the Minotaur's arrows that had just been shot through the swamp, it seemed that the other hunters had finished off with an all-out attack on the demonic beasts that appeared in the gap. Suho was satisfied with the quick completion of the quest and nodded his head in satisfaction. However, unlike Suho, who took the situation lightly, the 2 S-class hunters seemed to have different positions. For a moment. Little boy, what the hell was that arrow? No, were you an archer? Thomas Andre, who came to me with a lot of rage, was quite surprised. Suho, what was that? Didn't you say you don't have archery skills? The shock felt by Lim Tae-ju, who had seen this twice, was 10 times greater than that of Thomas. This is because the condensation of magical energy, which is essential to creating magic arrows, was not felt at all in the arrows of protection. The first time I saw it, I thought I was mistaken, but the moment I saw it twice, I was convinced. Suho had the skill to create arrows without consuming any mana. It's ridiculous to have such a skill. It felt like the common sense he knew was collapsing. However, Suho just brushed it off as if it was no big deal. Ah, I'm a summoner. I also summoned arrows. I know who is stupid. Even the summoning skill takes mana. It was true, but the problem was not knowing that Suho's summoning technique was not a skill, but a realm of authority. Suho decided to check the quest rewards, ignoring the people who were interested in him, as if he were looking at a mysterious animal. Completion reward has arrived. Do you want to check the reward? I don't expect much reward because the difficulty is too low. Check. Suho's current level is 40. The quest was so easy that even the boss mob, ruler of the swamp, Kasaka the Blue Poison Tooth, was captured in one shot, so I confirmed the reward without high expectations. But it wasn't. The following rewards are prepared. Rewards 1. Kasaka's Poison Fang. Reward 2. Kasaka's Poison Glands. Give me 2? What kind of windfall is this? A different color appeared in Suho's eyes, which he hadn't even expected. Suho entered the bathroom of the building after avoiding the S-class men who kept bothering to follow him from behind and asked him to explain about the magic arrow. Check. As soon as I took out the first item, a sharpened dagger appeared. Obtained item, Kasaka's Poison Fang. What is it? It's a dagger, isn't it? Suho's expression cooled as he accepted the dagger. Somehow, the difficulty of the quest was easy. Who would use such a weak-looking weapon? Beru, who had been quiet until now, suddenly jumped out and clung to Suho. Little lord, a dagger is never weak, especially when it comes to this dagger. It only has 25 attack power? It was Beru who flinched at those words. Item, Kasaka's Fang. Difficulty to obtain. C-type, dagger. ATK plus 25, a dagger made from Kasaka's venom. Kasaka's poison remains, granting paralysis and bleeding effects when attacking. You can keep it in your inventory or sell it in the shop. Effect paralysis. The attacked target becomes unable to move with a certain probability. Effect bleeding. The target's HP is consumed at a rate of 1% per second with a certain probability. Suho clicked his tongue as he skimmed through the item information. Isn't it? The length is too short, and the basic attack power of my Vulcan horn is 40, and the damage is increased by 300%. So why am I using this? Know that. Complaint. If only it came out a little faster. Beru said, sobbing with a frustrated expression. Little lord, this dagger is the weapon that the monarch treasured in the past. My father said he used it. When Beru said that, Suho looked at Kasaka's fangs with new eyes. But, no way. It must have been a bit bitter in the beginning. The effects were good, but the damage was too weak. Still, the next reward was useful. Item, Kasaka's venom gland has been acquired. Difficulty to obtain. A type elixir, a bag containing refined Kasaka's venom. There is an extremely rare chance of getting it by catching Kasaka. Drinking the venom gives you hard skin, but the poison permanently damages your muscles. Effect, Kasaka's ironclad scale. Physical damage reduced by 20%. Side effect, damaged muscle. Strength 35, it's poison. Suho's eyes sparkled. The type is classified as elixir, but the identity of this was snake venom that was flowing in the swamp. A deadly poison that damages muscles when touched or eaten. The king of bugs, the lord of plagues, swallows his mouth. This sounds good, right? And Suho also swallowed his saliva and poured Kasaka's venom into his mouth without hesitation. Gulp. Kasaka's poison was ingested. Kasaka's poison can be handled. Chapter 117, Chapter 116. A sticky liquid continued to flow down Suho's neck. The taste was disgusting and fishy, but it was still edible. It's not like I've eaten this kind of poison once or twice anyway. While Suho ate away every single drop of Kasaka's poison. In Suho's body, Quresha's blessing of plague and Candiaru's blessing, healthy longevity, were steadily being activated. Belt ring. A harmful ingredient has been detected. Treatment begins with the effect of buff, detoxification. 3-2-1, detoxification is complete. Side effect, damaged muscle disappears. First, the fatal side effects of Kasaka's poison were completely purified. Belt ring. Effect, Kasaka's ironclad scales. Physical damage is reduced by 20%. Now, only the positive buff effect with no side effects remains intact, increasing the defense of the Guardian. In addition, Suho's toughness skill was recently raising his defense by plus 100%, so when combined, he had a whopping plus 120% defense. At this level, Suho had become a tanker who would never be outdone anywhere. But more than that, what Suho welcomed the most was that he was able to use Kasaka's poison itself for attacks. Kasaka's poison. A poison that damages the muscles of the poison target, reducing their strength by -35. Damaged muscles literally means that the opponent's strength and speed are weakened as a whole. In the meantime, it was like getting a much stronger level of debuff than paralysis poison, which simply slowed down movement. I'm sure this will help? Suho immediately summoned Quay. Quay! From now on, you will fight by coating all your attacks with Kasaka poison. Okay. Swa. At that command, debuff, Kasaka's poison, seeped into the tip of Quay's spear. Like today, it would be more effective if I first shoot Quay with an arrow and debuff the opponent with Kasaka's poison before starting the battle. Of course, quite a few guys will all be sorted out on the Quay line like today. Unexpectedly, I got a very good ability. It was Suho who nodded with a satisfied expression. While Suho was checking the compensation, the post-processing of the Uljiro incident was also going smoothly. After annihilating the monsters, the area of the swamp area gradually decreased and disappeared. From the moment safety was secured, reporters rushed in and began to report this urgent situation to the media. Of course, it was always up to the association hunters to deal with this hectic situation. I am reporter Oh So-kun of the Hunter Daily. What kind of hunter's skill was that black arrow that suddenly flew from the sky? Those 2 arrows are actually hunting the boss mobs and everything. No, wait a minute. Please ask me one question at a time. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk was crying while surrounded by the microphones of numerous reporters. This isn't the time for me to be like this. He was besieged by reporters in a situation where he had to chase after Thomas Andre, who had suddenly disappeared. But that doesn't mean you can't pretend you don't know what's going on and leave. Anyway, the association hunters closest to Uljiro were themselves, and it was the association's job to do this post-processing. Fortunately, the situation was quickly suppressed, and there were few casualties, so the most urgent task now was to fairly distribute the bodies of the demons. I caught this beast! What nonsense! The wounds from my skill are clearly visible here. Actually, from now on is the most troublesome moment. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk felt his head pounding at the sight of the hunters arguing over the bodies of the beasts and claiming that they were theirs. But curiously, none of them touched the demons killed by the 2 black arrows that flew in the middle. The first shot flew like lightning and killed the boss mobs, and the second arrow overturned the entire swamp like a siege cannon. The second step aside, the problem is the first step. He understood the meaning of the first R, row, better than anyone else because he was team leader Han Jae-hyuk, who had seen numerous archer hunters while working for the association. Other hunters must have known the meaning, so they would not have dared to claim ownership of the arrow. I turned the direction in the sky to find the boss mob and sniped it. As if the arrow had eyes. I would have understood if it was a guided missile. It was rather a method of confirming the reality in front of your eyes and then chasing it until the end to hit the target. But flying in a parabolic arc from the far sky and then turning around like thunder and lightning to hunt the strongest beast? Who was an archer hunter with this skill? It's a skill I've never seen before. However, all these questions were resolved sooner than expected. Suddenly, the best archer in Korea, Lim Tae-gyu, appeared nearby. Omg, Im Tae-gyu. Reaper Guild leader. Ah, somehow I thought someone shot the arrow. As expected, the only archer with this skill is Lim Tae-gyu. Rush? What, for a moment? Why are you here? Lim Tae-gyu couldn't help but be frightened when he saw the reporters suddenly rushing towards him. As expected, Im Tae-gyu is the guild leader. Isn't it Hunter Lim Tae-gyu who shot the arrow a moment ago? Im Tae-gyu, please say something. I heard that the victims of this immigration risk were generously compensated for the damage. Just a moment. One question at a time, please. Even the world's best S-class hunter could not help but be embarrassed by this situation. Lim Tae-gyu turned his head to look for Suho with a tearful face. Then suddenly, his eyes met with Suho, who was standing in a corner far away where no one could see and leisurely watching him suffer. Ah, that bastard is real! Suho just smiled warmly and nodded toward Lim Tae-gyu, with a nasty expression, asking the uncle to make an excuse on his own. What the? You don't want to be exposed, is this? What sorcery is this again? Kids these days are real. Of course, on the other hand, I did understand. Anyway, just getting media attention for this incident didn't mean the ransom would go up. Rather, there are only a lot of annoying things. In the end, Hunter's ransom was raised by himself, even without anyone knowing. If it wasn't for the purpose of getting a job in a large guild, it was a simple structure to make money as much as you hunted monsters yourself. Or raising your own brand image and setting up your own guild. No, wait, stop. It was Lim Tae-gyu who realized something from Suho's expression looking at him at that moment. Could this be for me? Looking at the current situation, the moment he says that this is what he did, it was clear that this was an opportunity to restore the image of the Reaper Guild that had fallen into the abyss. It was an opportunity to widely publicize to the media that even though the Reaper Guild was criticized, the guild leader Lim Tae-gyu was still strong. But why? The reason why you do this for me is... It was then. What kind of voice came to Lim Tae-gyu's ears, who was just making a questionable expression? With this, the debt was paid off. Hearing that horrifyingly familiar voice, Lim Tae-gyu trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. He hurriedly turned his head and looked around, but the owner of the voice was nowhere to be seen. But I was sure. No way? No, how could I not know? It was the voice of his nerdy friend Lee Min-sung who made the Reaper Guild look like this. Where are you? Suddenly, the reporters around him reacted curiously to the sight of Lim Tae-gyu shouting out loud. But that kind of thing was good. Where are you? Whatever you are. But he didn't know. His bad friend Lee Min-sung was no longer in this world. There is only Kwei, who has been reborn as a shadow soldier. And then, Kwei, who was still looking up at his old friend's face while mingling in the shadows of countless reporters, spoke again. However, the contents were not like an apology cess, eyeing that he was sorry now. In the first place, Quay had no intention of asking him for forgiveness. So this is just doing what needs to be done. There is a secret ledger hidden in the Reaper Guild. It's the slush fund accumulated by the dead immigration department. Anyway, since the money is the property of the Reaper Guild, no one but the guild leader will be able to take it out. If only he knew the location and password of the account. Lim Taeju's eyes suddenly turned into astonishment when he learned that the information was hidden. To him, Quay silently called Lim Taeju the password of the secret account he had accumulated. Repeat it several times until he can memorize it. Thanks, Master. Are you done? Yes, there are no longer any lingering attachments. Beru growled as he watched Quay, who returned to Suho, and politely bowed his head. You are truly ungrateful, giving away that much money to a friend without thinking of giving it to a minor lord. I tried to do that at first, but what if it's legally impossible? That account is an account that only the guild leader or assistant guild leader of the Reaper Guild can access. After making such an excuse, Quay looked at Suho with a slightly embarrassed expression. It was hidden money that would disappear into the air without anyone noticing at the same time as the death of Lee Min-sung. Now, the guild he bought with that money was able to put out an urgent fire, even if it didn't look like it used to. So, I think I've done enough of this. I felt like I could throw away the name Lee Min-sung with real peace of mind now. Good job. Seeing Quay's relieved expression, Suho also nodded at that time. Squeak. Quay and Beru returned to the shadow of Suho. Just then, Thomas Andre was trudging towards Suho from afar. Thomas, like Lim Taegyu, seemed to have finally been released after dealing with annoying reporters. So are you ready now? At Thomas Andre's sudden question, Suho shrugged and nodded. Yes. The corner of Thomas Andre's mouth went up, as if he really liked that cool answer. Departure is tomorrow morning. Thomas Andre left that word and immediately turned around and went back to where Laura was. A determined light appeared in Suho's eyes as he gazed at the huge back. Tomorrow. It's finally tomorrow, to find the missing mother. To the glacier dungeon. It was then. Suho. Shaking off the reporters, Lim Taegyu approached Suho and started talking to him. Let's ask one thing. Yes. In that glacier dungeon, are you the only one who enters, or will your colleagues go with you? A colleague? Okay. Those who want to make a guild with you. Suho put on a puzzled expression at the sudden question, then fell into deep thought for a while. Of course, Essel would follow, but Lim Do-kyun was a bit vague about whether to say that he would go in with this. Lim Do-kyun has been living in his shadow as he has been training under Amut lately. So when Suho entered the glacier dungeon, Lim Do-kyun, who was in the shadow, was also taken with him. Let's go in together. Okay, I see. Well, Thomas Andre is going with me, so it'll be all right. Lim Taeju, who was muttering to himself with a disturbed expression, scratched his head and nodded. Have a good trip. If your colleagues are in danger, protect them well. That's obvious. Feeling a strange sense of déjà vu, Suho's eyes widened wide. Someone else's face was overlapping on Lim Taeju's embarrassed face. For a moment, no way? Mister, maybe. Except the moment Suho was about to ask something. After cutting off the words in the middle, Lim Taeju opened his mouth first. Oh, and the empty money came in that I hadn't even thought of. There is a bow that I was originally going to sell to raise money. I'll lend it to you, so use it in the glacier dungeon and give it back. A bow? Chapter 118, Chapter 117, Facade Island. Facade is a small island located in the Pacific Ocean and was the smallest republic in the world. It was a very small independent country with the smallest population among the regular members of the United Nations, and its area was only about a quarter of Jeju Island. However, the Facade was also a fairly wealthy country compared to its size. Since the island itself was made of phosphate stones, which were made by accumulating guano, animal excrement, it was possible to enjoy great wealth just by mining the huge amount of phosphate stones buried in the island. This was all the more so because the population was small compared to the money they earned. However, when the cataclysm occurred, problems began to arise from the very underpopulation. If the population was small, the absolute number of hunters who naturally awakened was also small. When the gate occurred, the hunter, the only power that could block it, was utterly lacking. And finally, that day has come. Ireland, which lacked the number of dungeon break hunters, was quickly eroded by the blue fog without any chance to resist. It became a field-type dungeon. Belatedly, the president of the facade spent a huge amount of money trying to hire foreign hunters as mercenaries, but at that time the situation had already reached a point where it was out of hand. Suddenly, ordinary citizens who had no aptitude for magical powers turned into mist buns here and there and started to run wild. In fact, the facade was destroyed that day. At that time, information about mistburn and magical aptitude hadn't spread all over the world yet. While Suho flew to the facade in Thomas Andre's private plane, he was being briefed on the situation by Laura. Like that, the whole country of the facade disappeared. There are still a handful of survivors living there, but they are in effect refugees from a ruined country. But, fortunately or badly, the president of that country is still alive. Thomas, who was leisurely looking at the clouds in the sky with his arms folded beside him, said to Suho, looking back at him. Has the president awakened as a hunter? That's right. That was lucky. However, the first thing he did after awakening was to kill his own family members, who had turned into mist burns, so you could say it was bad luck. At those words, Suho had no choice but to keep his mouth shut. It couldn't have been a really gruesome situation. Laura raised her glasses and resumed the briefing. This is what experts say these days. When the dungeon break goes off, the most dangerous thing is not the monster, but the blue mist itself flowing from the gate. Suho also nodded in agreement. What I've learned through experience so far is that demon beasts are, in the end, just refugees wandering through the dimensional rift. Of course, the habit is so vicious that it instinctively attacks and eats humans, but the more fundamental problem is the blue fog. Suho's mind suddenly recalled a conversation he had with Beru and Lacan's fangs. This blue mist is the magic of outer space. It is used to forcibly penetrate the dimensional wall and cause cracks in the world. That's right. Because of this fog, the sanctuary I was in also wandered through the dimensional rift and connected to Earth. After all, what the aliens want is to spread this fog all over the Earth and cause a great rift. They're trying to drill a hole that's huge enough for their army to cross the dimension. And, just like the swamp we saw yesterday, the demonic beasts soaked in blue mist spread everywhere, and the contaminated area gets wider and wider. Suho put on a serious expression as he recalled the swamp area that was gradually widening in real time yesterday. At that time, there were many hunters around, so the result of not being able to solve the situation quickly was the field-type dungeons he had experienced many times. At least, they are tightly wrapped around the circumference with barbed wire, and the outside is protected so that the monsters cannot escape, so the size does not expand any further. By preventing the magic beasts that spread the blue mist from crossing over it. Even these days, it was becoming more and more safe as the barbed wire was being developed with the magic of magic stones to develop various methods that demon beasts could not approach. However, Facade Island, where I am going now, was all around the sea. The problem was that the erosion had already ended before specialized equipment such as barbed wire was developed. I'm here. After a while, the private plane carrying them finally landed on the coast of Facade Island. When the plane door opened, the fierce cold blowing from outside awaited Suho. Did you arrive too? Leo Singh, who had been sleeping on the side seat all this time, felt the cold and took off the blindfold. Laura pointed to Rio Singh and asked Suho, by the way, why did you bring this Indian hunter? Are you in cooperation with the Asura Guild? I help Suho. I came as an interpreter. Leo Singh proudly introduced himself. Although he is clumsy because he has just learned Korean, he was basically a scholar who could speak 4 languages. I can't lose the Holy Guardian to the Scavenger. English was essential to move with the Scavenger Guild, which was mostly made up of Americans, but Suho didn't know how to speak English. Leo Singh had been requesting that he be included in the raid team for this reason. Anyway, if I move with Thomas Andre, my safety is guaranteed, so I thoroughly help only translate and make Sung Suho depend on me. It was Leo Singh who said it was a very perfect plan and his eyes lit up. But the problem was elsewhere. Outside the plane, the scavenger guild members who had arrived and were waiting for Thomas Andre set up barracks and were stationed there. Guild leader. The guild leader has arrived. Rush. Fearing that someone might not be the scavenger, all of them came towards Thomas Andre with a formidable impression. Thomas, why are you so late? Oops. Shut up, you kids. Thomas Andre kicked the first one who ran up to him with his feet, then looked back at the faces of the guild members one by one with grim eyes and smiled. Is it very cold? No, do you mean that? Why are you leaving the elite like us here? How much money would it cost to go through one more dungeon at a time like this? It's really cold. It's cold. As if waiting for a word from Thomas Andre, a noisy uproar broke out. Everyone, without exception, was full of dissatisfaction. However, perhaps because of a colleague who was beaten while fighting, his momentum was a little less than at the beginning. By the way, boss, what are those little ones? One of them asked, pointing to Suho and Leo Singh, who happened to be standing near Thomas Andre. Being caught up in the midst of the already large scavengers, the two of them had no choice but to look relatively small. What? Could it be that you kept us waiting just to bring these guys? Does it look weak? No. Still, I think the mana I feel is about B class, right? What if it's B grade? Would you use your strength here with such a poor body? The scavenger guild members, who had already arrived here a few days ago, frowned as they glanced at Suho and the others with open eyes. However, while receiving such stares, Suho had no thoughts. What do you mean? Because I didn't know English. However, just by looking at their expressions, it was enough to feel that the atmosphere was not welcoming them. Boss, did you really make us wait in the cold to get them? Ah, what is it really? Keok! Another was babbling and was kicked by Thomas, but their reaction was completely natural. The tanker, who had just been beaten, stood up again and protested to Thomas Andre with a genuinely angry expression. Boss, no, I'm not kidding. You've been here for the first time, right? In this cold, hunters with such weak stamina can't use their strength properly. We also said that our stamina was lost just by being here for 3 days. You're right, but the problem is that even though this place is still outside the dungeon, it is at this level. This is the outermost area of the field dungeon that has not yet been eroded. So in Korea, it was right in front of the barbed wire. However, now this area has turned into a zone of severe cold as if it had come to Antarctica. Really glacier. If you go into the glacier dungeon with these guys, it's just a burden. You said you haven't seen those guys come back alive until now? So what are you doing? Of course you're not a tanker. Are you a dealer? The guild member just glanced at the sword in Leo Xing's hand and laughed. But the problem was the moment his gaze passed the two of them and turned to Suho. Why doesn't he have a weapon? Is it magic? To that question, Thomas Andre put on a slightly puzzled expression. To be honest, leaving the guild members alone in such a cold place for several days was not good. Even though he was acting like that, he knew that his guild members were by no means weak. In the meantime, they must have been playing their roles while hunting the nearby monsters on their own. The only problem is that the reason they kept waiting was because of Suho, but the words to introduce Suho were very ambiguous. Fortunately, Laura gave it to me at the right time. The hunter Sung Suho here is a Korean hunter and a C-class summoner. Her? Summoning? Did I just hear wrong? I told the truth, but the reaction was even more absurd. In the end, he couldn't stand it, and a large scavenger guild member strode towards Suho. The tall man with a head taller than Suho looked down at Suho with kind eyes and gnashed his teeth. A summoner? Yes, kid, what can you summon? Since it's cold, it would be really appreciated if you could summon a fire moth. The only problem was Suho's poor English skills. I couldn't understand his angry English pronunciation, so Leo Xing, who heard the words from the side, quickly translated for Suho. Guardian, is it possible to summon? Summons? Ah, yes. At that, Suho said he forgot and took out the key to the shadow dungeon. Then, plugging into his own shadow, he said, Me and Asil. Wow, did you call? At that moment, Eshel suddenly appeared in Suho's shadow. The eyes of everyone who were staring at Suho with an annoyed expression at that shocking appearance were stained with astonishment. 4 people? Summoning someone? What is this again? Surprisingly, the same was true of Thomas Andre, who brought Suho. While Essel was on the plane, he was staying in the shadow dungeon of Suho, and the reason was, of course, because of his overseas visa. He somehow registered as a hunter with the help of Yu Jinho to apply for a guild, but Eshel was basically a demon. Even getting a visa was a cumbersome task. Suho, summon someone too? Summons? Even Ryo Singh couldn't help but be greatly embarrassed when Essel, whom he had seen in Egypt, suddenly popped out of Suho's shadow. Essel also recognized Ryo Singh. What is this human I saw at the pyramid the other day? A colleague too? Summons? People? However, Ryo Singh's mind was getting more and more confused. It was a big deal. A sense of crisis prevailed. There were two interpreters. Chapter 119, Chapter 118. This is a skill to summon a humanoid pet? Do you have a summoning skill like this? I've seen a B-class summoner summon a puppet, but you like puppets. Doesn't this woman look like a real person? Even the mana you can feel is at least B-class. Does this make sense? A C-class summoner? But how does C-class summon B-class? Buzz buzz. Suho, can you translate for me? No, just by looking at his expression, I think I can understand what he means. Suho and Essel looked at the hulking figures surrounding them and even thought they were somehow cute. Haha. The main interest of hunters was the same regardless of nationality. What item does that person use? Where did you buy it? What is that skill again? Interesting. It's only been 2 years since the cataclysm occurred. It was a time when information sharing had not yet been actively carried out, so even a high-ranking hunter in a large guild had to have a lot of information that he did not know. Of course, all the curiosity always came down to who was stronger in the end, but the summoning skill that Suho showed stimulated the curiosity of the scavenger guild members to the point of overwhelming them. In particular, the expression of Derek Johnson, the A-class hunter who was the first to estimate Suho's magical power, was difficult to express in words. No matter how well you look at it, it's at the level of B-class, but there's no way this kind of skill is possible with just that much magical power. He was quite confident in estimating the amount of magical power of others. It is common sense that no matter how good a skill is, if the amount of magic power is low, it will not be able to demonstrate its ability. However, the amazing ability that Suho showed was never at a level that was possible for a Class C summoner. That means that. Are you hiding your magic? How amazing is mana control? The higher the rank of hunter, the more people hid their magic. Rather than hiding it because he wanted to hide it, it was the result of having perfect control over his magic power. Why? As long as hunters are human, just by living and breathing, they will consume their mana little by little without realizing it. However, the more completely he controlled his own magic power, the more he could save unnecessary consumption of magic power. Then, is this really how much magic is hidden? So what is the original grade? Class A? S-class? I just introduced Sung Suho as a C-class summoner. Derek Johnson put on an expression of disbelief at the words of Laura, who justly repeated what he said next to him. No way. Laura must have misunderstood something. I assure you, this kid is definitely A-level or higher. I could bet my entire fortune. How could a C-class summoner summon a B-class summoner in the first place? It was then. Okay, enough of the small talk, and since we're all gathered, let's start right away. Tall. Thomas Andre's words changed the expressions of the Scavenger Guild members at that moment. The atmosphere of chatter and chatter just before disappeared in an instant, and only the warriors of the reverse who radiated hot fighting spirit existed there. As preparations began in earnest, Laura immediately boarded a plane and returned to her home country. Leave a message that you will come back when the attack is over. Guild leader, then I will brief you on the work of the past 3 days. The rough information has already been delivered through Laura. It's cold anyway, and there is some new information I just got from Korea. That information was about the ice elves he had heard from Suho. And in return for that information, Thomas Andre promised to pay Suho a fair price after the raid was over. He had to pay the price for participating in this raid anyway, so he decided to pay it all at once. Thomas Andre, who delivered the information to the guild members and thoroughly prepared for the archers, gave an order to the guild members who were staring at him with a small, RK, Let's end this biting talk. You know our style. The rest of the body hits and goes out. Yes, boss. The scavenger's shout echoed through the cold wind. The moment you set foot inside the field of Facade Island, Suho realized that the cold so far was nothing. Suddenly, a huge blizzard mixed with blue fog obscured the view, and the cold like an ice age began. Debuff, Curse of Cold, is applied. Attack speed decreases by -50%. Movement speed decreases by -30%. But of course, Suho didn't have that. Candiaru's Blessing is applied. Debuff, Curse of the Cold disappears. Is this the Glacier Dungeon? As the name suggests, all the landscapes that come into view were literally as if the Ice Age had come. In the streets, the wreckage of buildings and countless cars that collapsed under the weight of the thick snow were covered in snowdrifts and buried. High-rise buildings such as large shopping malls and office towers were covered with snow and ice, making them look like ice castles. This miserable landscape felt like it had frozen and preserved the horrors of the day when the dungeon break occurred. It is terrible. For some reason, it seemed that this place perished because of the cold rather than the witch beasts. While walking through the snowstorm with the Scavenger Guild, step by step through the frozen city, he was busy exploring his surroundings with only his face sticking out from Verdot's shadow. It seems that there's no sign of Itarim yet. By the way, my lord, aren't you cold? How about wearing something? In the meantime, I didn't forget to carefully check Suho's safety. At those words, Suho nodded and opened the shop window. In fact, the higher the magic power, the more cold and hot it was able to endure. But the cold here was beyond imagination. Snap. Purchased item, Ice Bear's Robe. Purchased item, Ice Bear's Robe. Suho has 3 fur coats decorated with pure white fur. I bought bees and gave them to Essil and Leo Singh. Put it on. Ethel accepted the suit and put it on, but Leo Singh was shocked. Suho, this awesome artifact gift. I am impressed. I'm borrowing it, because I have to earn gold by selling it later. Despite Suho's word of lending, Leo Singh was still thrilled and surprised. Item, Ice Bear's to obtain. Grade B. Type, robe. Defense +50, a robe made of Ice Bear's fur. The leather is tough and strong, so it has high defense and is effective in blocking the cold. However, if your strength is less than 80, your movement will be slow. Effect, Cold Resistance. It blocks cold and has resistance to freezing magic. Effect, Cold Tolerance. The effect of this simple option was amazing. The moment he put on Ice Bear's robe, the Ice Age level of cold was cut off in an instant. What a good choice. If it's Ice Bear's skin, it should be able to defend against the Ice Elves' freezing magic. Of course, if the arrow is loaded with freezing magic, be careful as it can damage your clothes. While Ver was diligently explaining to Suho, the Scavenger Guild members' eyes widened once again when they saw the fur that suddenly appeared in Suho's hand. What? Are you also summoning clothes? Well, I summon people too, but it's about a fur coat. Does that fur look very warm? For a moment, I think that's made of Ice Bear's hide. What? Please give me two. Me too. Shut up, you bastards. Seeing the guild members flocking to Suho again, Thomas Andre intervened by threatening them. Then he shyly held out his hand to Suho. Do you have any left? At that time, Leo Singh proudly stood up to Thomas Andre and spoke for Suho. Show me the money. Of course, contrary to what he said, even if he offered to pay, Suho had no intention of opening a shop window anymore. After all, Thomas Andre's mana would be able to withstand this much cold. The other guild members didn't stay here for a day or two anyway, so their clothes were thick. Whoa! But as the blizzard intensified, the Scavenger Guild members continued to glare at Suho and his party with envious expressions. Come. Suddenly, Thomas Andre raised his head with a ferocious expression. Carried away by a frantic blizzard, arrows began to fly from somewhere. Defense! At his cry, the defense skills of the Scavenger Guild members spread all over the place. Blasphemy! When the arrows were blocked by the transparent magical barrier, white thin ice formed on the wall, and the arrows keep flying. The problem started there. Blasphemy! Jump! Guild leader! The shield is about to break. The freezing magic is weakening the defense of the shield. Hearing the urgent voices of the guild members, Thomas Andre raised his eyes towards the Ice Elves, who could not be seen due to the blizzard. Strengthen skills. At that moment, a tremendous amount of mana condensed in his arm. Ha! As he swung his fist into the air, powerful energy surged like a wave, piercing the blizzard and exploding. The arrows flying in that tremendous explosion were extinguished all at once. The battle begins. Finally, the battle of the scavengers began in earnest. However, Suho's gaze was not looking in that direction, but in the other direction.
Ice.
A huge presence felt over the blizzard. Although there was nothing visible, the sensory stats were giving a warning. These are the real ones. Suho immediately took out his bow, and Thomas Andre was already moving there. That way is real, all scattered. The S-Class hunter's senses were already in control of the whole situation, but then the problem happened. In the first place, the ice golems had no intention of attacking this side. Below that, wah! Wait! No way! Realizing the sign, Suho's complexion changed terribly. Spring up, Quay. While black arrows are created from his shadow. The ice golems were already striking the frozen ground with their hands together. Quack, quack. From there, the ground cracked and the road began to collapse. Oh no, it's an earthquake! I heard the panicking Thomas Andre's cry. At that moment, the floor they were standing on suddenly collapsed and they began to fall at the same time. At the moment of the fall, Eshel suddenly realized something and urgently looked at Suho. Suho, it's the gate. A dimensional rift is being felt down here. Whoa, at that moment, Suho was already aware of it. Where is this terrible blizzard starting? A sudden ice age on this tiny island in the sun-drenched Pacific Ocean. This blizzard didn't come from the sky, but from the beginning, it came from underground on the island. Wow, and a huge cold blizzard sucked all the hunters, including Suho, into the gate. Is this inviting us? Suho's eyes lit up as he watched the gate of the cold that engulfed him. Then I can't go empty-handed. Suho, who was falling down, recklessly pulled a bowstring and shot Quay at the moment he passed through the gate. Chapter 120, Chapter 119. Quay, who had turned into a black arrow, flew forward through the frigid blizzard that fluttered like a typhoon. If ordinary archers saw this, they would have cursed at him, saying that he was wasting only so much mana, because it was a blind arrow. However, Suho's arrow has an eye. Quay, guess whoever sees it first. Yes, master! Quay's voice was buried in the blizzard, and Azrai disappeared. At the same time, Suho stopped caring about Quay. The important thing right now was this one. Wow! Even in the midst of this, all the hunters of the scavenger, including Suho, passed through the gate and continued to fall down. Everyone prepare for the impact with magic. The voices of the Scavenger Guild members who responded to Thomas Andre's charismatic command faded away. My vision was blurry because of the blizzard that raged relentlessly. Because of that, I couldn't even see Eshel or Ryo Singh right next to me, but I believed that I could deal with this on my own. Wow! Just like Thomas said, Suho himself maximized his senses by protecting his entire body with magic. Then, through the pure white blizzard, I finally began to see a certain scenery down there little by little. Whoa! Suddenly, Suho's eyes widened wide as he witnessed the scene with a strong headwind, forest. I could see the white frozen forest below. Ice-covered river and snow-covered trees. Ice crystals glistened in the stream that ran through the dense mountain range. The spring water that flowed along the small valley formed a small lake and blended naturally with the frozen forest. Little Lord, you must bring Quay back. If it crashed like this. It would be dangerous if it crashed like this because of Ver's urgent cry. However, if it hadn't been for even the fluttering of Quay's wings, it would have never been able to penetrate such a violent blizzard. This blizzard is not just a meteorological phenomenon, but the storm itself. It was a blizzard loaded with magical power that could penetrate even the rifts of dimension. However, while listening to Ver's urgent cry, Suho couldn't help but lose his gaze at the wonderful scenery that came into his field of vision through the fluttering snowstorm. The scenery that unfolded before my eyes was so spectacular that it could not be compared to any dungeons I had experienced so far. I only regret one thing. It was that he was falling keyed from a high altitude over that beautiful sight. Are you saying that ice elves live in that forest? Anyway, I figured out the situation. Now it was time to deal with it. Grey River God. Whoa. Huo-oh. Even in the harsh snowstorm, a divine wind blew and wrapped around Suho's body. Uses skill, grassland wind. The grassland wind frees the priest's body. Movement speed temporarily increases by 30%. Attack speed temporarily increases by 30%. Chew! Suho, who had bleached his silver hair in an instant, quickly opened his inventory and replaced the item. A faint smile appeared on Suho's lips as he held the two horns of Vulcan in both hands. If your opponent is a storm, just cut! Wow! Use skill Storm Slash. A fierce blizzard entwined Guardian's twin swords. Twisting the wind in reverse forcibly slowed the fall. Whoop! Suho's body began to slowly fall into the middle of the forest as if gliding down. He slashed Vulcan's horn straight down at a large tree that just happened to be nearby. Quajijijik! A huge tree split into two from Vulcan's horn, and the speed of Suho's fall further decreased. Chuck. Well, I lived for now. Suho, who had safely landed on the thick snow at the noble sacrifice of the tree, looked around with a calm gaze. All I see is pure white snow and trees. The hunters who had fallen together could not see whether the points where they crashed were different. I was suddenly in distress. I know the reason why so few hunters have come back alive. Sure, if this is the case, I must have completely failed. Why? A minute. Suho, who nodded at Ver's words, suddenly had a question in his head. He raised his head and looked up at the sky where the dimensional rift was wide open, with a puzzled look on his face. Then how did those who returned alive get back? Could it be that he flew over there? At that, Verdo finally narrowed his eyes and looked at the gate in the sky. Of course, it would have been possible for hunters with flying skills, but before that there was a snag. Come to think of it, I don't think those ice golems would have smashed the ground like this every time. If all the hunters who came to attack the glacier dungeon had passed through the gate in the same way now, all the land on Facade Island should have already been devastated, However, there was no way that the ground was covered over it again after falling like this every time. Perhaps there is not one entrance. There is not one gate? Yes, look at that sky right now. Humans simply refer to it as a gate, but in reality, the cracks in the dimension widen more and more as time goes on. As Beru said, the gate through which Suho passed was not just an ordinary hole, but a space torn apart. Since Facade Island was already an area polluted with magic uncontrollably, it was not strange that there were holes leading to the dungeons here and there. So until now, other hunters have come this way through other holes. Startled, Suho stopped talking until the end and immediately twisted his waist and swung his sword. Chow! Kuruk! The ice kobold has been killed. With that single blade, the head of the monster who sneaked up on me while hiding in the blizzard was cut off. Suho immediately looked around and smiled faintly. Looks like I fell too loudly. It's already surrounded. Oh, in the midst of the blizzard, Suho was surrounded by life-threatening gazes. Ice kobold. Oh! Vision and hearing were disturbed due to the magical blizzard, but it seemed that this was no problem for those monsters whose main habitat was here. That's fun. Suho just laughed. A situation where you have to rely solely on your sensory stats. It was at the level of such a kobold now, but how strong enemies lurked beyond that. Besides, of course, he is now separated from his colleagues who came in together. It's rather good. Beru also laughed. Wouldn't it be a perfect situation for Suho to level up comfortably if his vision was blocked and he was alone? The time to level up has arrived. Minotaur, come out. Wow, 2 gigantic shadow monsters that rise from the shadows at the command of the Guardian. Shadow Minotaur Level 1. Night Grade. Night Grade. The madman that Suho had personally killed and saved in the demon realm had now become Suho's dependable soldiers. The shadowy minotaurs that swayed black steam all over their bodies spread their muscular arms and roared ferociously. The bodies of the ice kobolds, who seemed ready to rush at Suho at any moment, trembled instinctively at that momentum. Pointing at them, Suho ordered, "Trample everything." Mwah. The ice kobold has been killed. The ice kobold has been killed. The ensuing battle was overwhelming. The number of kobolds constantly appearing in the forest exceeded hundreds, but they were trampled to death by the brutal violence of the Minotaur, the shadow of the tribe. and only then did the real, who had been holding its breath behind them, finally begin to reveal itself. The monster, similar in size to the ice golems seen above, swung a log in one hand and struck the shadow minotaur, Tao, in the head. Kwajik! Tao's neck was snapped by the destructive force so great that the log was shattered, but, Mum, it was useless. Enveloped in black steam, Tao's savage gaze returned to normal with a broken neck. In front of him, the ice troll felt a chill. Tao was laughing, with an eerie expression, as if it was only this much. And right away, Tao's arm muscles swelled as he raised his fist at the ice troll. Moo. The moment when that overwhelming violence was about to be poured out on the ice trolls. Pooh! A black spear suddenly pierced the ice troll's back and stabbed it into its chest. Chew! When the spear was pulled out, the ice troll lost his life and collapsed on the spot. I killed the ice troll. The owner of the spear was none other than Quay. Quay, who was shot with an arrow and immediately returned to Suho's place, smiled meaningfully at Tao as he trampled on the ice troll's corpse. I was faster. What? I can't even speak. It's like a slow-bursting ribhead. Ignoring Tao, who was purring in anger, Quay immediately approached Suho and knelt down. Chuck. The window knight Quay has returned. However, Quay did not return empty-handed. A strangeness appeared in Suho's eyes. Quay's ankle was caught in his hand, and he was holding something that had passed out. What did you catch? This is the ice elf I flew to and hit. Surprisingly, what Quay caught was a young ice elf who looked about 10 years old. Of course, I knew as soon as I saw his appearance that he was an ice elf. More than that, what Suho paid attention to was none other than the name tag floating above the elf's head. Circa, guardian of the Beruka tribe. Guardian of the Beruka tribe? It was a witch beast with some meaningful modifier attached to it. First of all, evidence that the ice elves are living as a tribal unit, as Liao Sing informed. But even more mysterious than that was the fact that the ice elf was still breathing. Are you still alive? Yes. Unfortunately, I couldn't bear to kill him. What? Suho was genuinely surprised. The truly amazing words came out of Quay's mouth. There was no way that Quay would have realized the preciousness of life now. But what came out of Quay's mouth was even more surprising. This ice elf recognized me. He asked me if I knew the Shadow Lord, so I wondered if it might be a clue. What? Suho's eyes widened. Quay asked for a big catch.